A reincarnated man awakens inside a dangerous fantasy world where shadowy monsters roam forests, immediately facing deadly threats beyond imagination everywhere. A frightened young nun encounters the approaching creatures, revealing the world's constant danger while unexpected fate draws both together. Suddenly realizing survival alone cannot protect everyone, the reincarnated man resolves to change destiny and prevent the world's destruction through decisive action completely. He unleashes overwhelming magical power, crushing attacking monsters instantly, and shielding the terrified girl before overwhelming enemies can strike again successfully. Although confused about everything surrounding him, he remains determined to uncover the truth while protecting innocent lives from future dangers. After defeating the monsters, Alba regrets exposing his strength while protecting the frightened girl, knowing attention threatens the peaceful life he planned. His memories confirm the world matches a popular dating action game centered around the prestigious Kriana Royal Academy and countless branching routes. Players freely shape events through battles and decisions, allowing different outcomes while exploring the academy, meeting allies, and confronting dangerous magical beasts. The game also offers romance with heroines, creating numerous endings depending entirely on choices made throughout every important encounter and adventure. Alba remembers the arrogant villain appears across every route, constantly obstructing progress and creating unavoidable conflicts before ultimately meeting his destined downfall. Alba Eretia is introduced as a powerful duke's son whose arrogance, cruelty, and strength make him the protagonist's ultimate destined enemy forever. Instead of chasing power or status, Alba chooses isolation, living peacefully inside remote mountains far from the academy and noble society. 3 years pass quietly as Alba enjoys simple farming, appreciating his peaceful routine while avoiding every event connected to his original fate. His secluded lifestyle continues without interruption, allowing him to forget noble responsibilities and the dangerous destiny awaiting beyond the mountain paths. After reincarnating, Alba gradually realizes he awakened inside the game's villain, prompting him to abandon everything and escape his predetermined downfall. Alba appears throughout Kriana fantasy as the unavoidable villain, kidnapping the saint and blocking every hero's progress relentlessly across routes. Sometimes he steals heroines away, acting as a rival, spreading fear wherever he appears, manipulating others, without remorse, constantly alone. Eventually corruption consumes Alba, turning him into a destructive force threatening the academy, and everyone regardless of the route always. Every storyline ends with Alba causing disasters, claiming power, treasures, or territories before facing inevitable defeat, despite overwhelming strength alone. Remembering the game's recurring villain, the reincarnated man realizes he has become Alba, accepting his terrible fate with disbelief immediately. Alba realizes every storyline guarantees his death, leaving no escape because every route eventually ends with the villain's inevitable defeat. Always, whether battling the protagonist or pursuing darker ambitions, every possible path leads Alba toward destruction regardless of choices or overwhelming strength. Overwhelmed by despair, Alba refuses accepting meaningless death, determined to discover another path instead of waiting helplessly for fate's cruel judgment. He decides surviving requires abandoning his destined role, leaving noble life behind before the game's deadly events can ever begin completely. Secretly gathering valuables, Alba escapes his family's mansion and heads toward the countryside, determined to survive through isolation and peaceful living. 3 years pass peacefully as Alba survives in a small mountain cottage, believing hard work and isolation have saved him. However, fate returns when Celia unexpectedly visits his home, reminding Alba that destiny still follows every step he takes forward. Celia Margaret cheerfully delivers a letter, unaware her presence already connects Alba with the game's dangerous future events. Again unintentionally, Alba laughs naturally despite recognizing Celia as a heroine, hoping friendly distance will prevent unwanted changes to fate ahead completely. After apologizing kindly, Alba reminds himself avoiding close ties remains essential, because survival depends on escaping every dangerous story trigger. Alba worries Celia's growing closeness could trigger the fatal destiny awaiting him, despite enjoying their peaceful life together every day. A revered scientist possesses miraculous healing abilities and disaster foresight, making her influence dangerous for Alba's survival plans ahead. Always, Alba recalls everything began half a year earlier after settling quietly beside his mountain home and tending simple crops daily. Villagers accepted Alba as ordinary, while rumors about his family faded, allowing peaceful shopping and steady farming without pursuit yet. Alba suspects resentment toward his former self protected his disappearance, strengthening his determination to keep living quietly from now onward. Alba hears distant screams while working, immediately stops, scans the mountains, and realizes dangerous trouble is unfolding somewhere nearby today. Guards desperately protect a saintess before masked attackers slaughter them, leaving her frozen alone among fallen companions in terror silently. Assassins surround the frightened saintess with drawn blades, trapping her after eliminating every escort nearby without mercy or escape possible. An unknown warrior suddenly crashes into the battlefield, intercepting the fatal strike and blasting enemies away before they could succeed. Alba watches the chaotic rescue with confusion as explosive attacks overwhelm assassins and leave the stunned scientists searching for answers. Alba steps before the terrified scientists, warning the surrounding assassins that attacking a helpless girl is completely unacceptable, despite the overwhelming danger. The scientist suddenly recognizes Alba from distant memories, making him realize she belongs among the story's important heroines tied to his dangerous fate. Alba regrets meeting another central heroine because avoiding every major character was his only plan for escaping the deadly future awaiting him. More assassins rush toward them, forcing Alba to accept destiny's pursuit while the frightened scientist desperately urges escape before the enemies close in. Alba unleashes a powerful blast that overwhelms the charging attackers, deciding protecting the scientist now matters, despite risking the fatal future he feared. Alba reflects on months of harsh training, mastering magic to survive while accepting the burden of defeating the assassins threatening his predetermined fate. He strengthens his resolve, promising himself to resist every deadly challenge ahead, instead of surrendering to the destiny waiting for him. After the battle, Alba checks on the scientist and apologizes because her companions died, despite his efforts to protect everyone. The overwhelmed scientist finally breaks into tears, unable to hide the fear, grief, and exhaustion she carried throughout her difficult journey. Alba realizes her painful confession explains everything, strengthening his determination to protect her despite the dangerous fate still pursuing them both. The scientist explains that her high position attracts enemies seeking power, forcing innocent people to sacrifice themselves whenever they try protecting her. Alba realizes her suffering is genuine, not a fictional story, and decides he cannot ignore the frightened girl standing before him. The scientist breaks down, admitting she only wants a peaceful life without fear, while Alba quietly comforts her and listens carefully. Alba gently pats her head, giving reassurance through simple kindness, and the scientist gradually calms as his presence eases her despair. Believing she should not remain alone, Alba warmly invites the scientist to stay at his mountain home, leaving her surprised but hopeful. Alba admits he barely understands the scientist's hardships, yet recognizes her efforts and encourages her to rest, instead of carrying endless burdens alone. The scientist realizes Alba truly sees her as an ordinary person, and his sincere concern begins easing the pain she has hidden. Alba believes she deserves freedom from her cruel destiny and offers her a chance to escape instead of suffering without hope. Alba reaches out his hand, inviting the scientist to leave everything behind and begin a new life alongside him, despite uncertain dangers. The scientist accepts Alba's offer with renewed hope, taking his hand while Alba quietly accepts the risks that accompany protecting her future. Alba introduces himself to Celia, hoping her future will hold more smiles than tears as they begin trusting each other. 6 months later, Celia happily smiles at their peaceful home after receiving a long-awaited reply from her father. The Pope, Celia shyly asks Alba to remain beside her, and he warmly embraces her, reassuring her with quiet acceptance and unwavering support. Alba promises to protect Celia until the end, strengthening her confidence and replacing lingering fears with comfort, safety, and hope. Their shared promise deepens their bond, as Alba remains determined beside Celia while she happily accepts their new life together. Celia excitedly showed Alba a school pamphlet, hoping they could visit together. Alba smiled but quietly worried the academy was connected to dangerous events from the future. The academy reminded Alba of the game's tragic storyline, where countless death flags surrounded him, and every decision could lead toward disaster. Celia explained that her father recommended the academy so she could finally enjoy a peaceful, ordinary life despite her difficult past. Her excitement about studying together softened Alba's determination to avoid that dangerous place, making him reconsider his earlier decision. Seeing Celia's genuine happiness, Alba decided supporting her dream mattered more than avoiding the uncertain future awaiting them both. Alba watched Celia cling to him desperately, realizing she dreaded leaving their peaceful home for the academy ahead together reluctantly. Kriana School waited firm as the center of a fantasy realm designed for nobles. Among its key figures was Alba Iretia, a feared antagonist doomed to die regardless of the way taken. After being reborn as Alba, he secluded personally close in the highlands to departure that future. Despite efforts to avoid the academy, events gradually pulled him closer to its towering gates. Ultimately, he arrived at Kriana Academy, greeted by Celia, unable to resist the story's pull. Inside the carriage, Alba surfaced unwell, silently enduring the nausea of trips beside Celia. She kindly gave her lap, oblivious of the staid tension behind his polite decline. Unbeknownst to her, their arrival at the school marked the start of several peril points bound to the story's plot. Celia, with her gentle concern, was one of the central figures tied to his downfall. Despite knowing the risk, Alba still traveled with her, questioning his own decision. Celia handed Alba a letter from her father, unexpectedly addressed to him. Her father, a powerful religious leader, rivaled even the king in influence. Alba dreaded condemnation, imagining holy wrath for harboring the male's daughter. Both he and Celia waited silently, unsure of what the message would reveal. To his relief, the letter contained only sincere apologies and heartfelt thanks. Outside the peaceful hut, Alba remained still, reading the message that showed Celia's holy lineage. Declared a saint by birth, Celia was bound by fate to serve the teachings of the goddess. Even from a young age, she traveled to visit faithful believers throughout the land. Dangerous roads and difficult terrain never stopped her sacred mission. Through every trial, she extended ease and light to those who had lacked hope. Celia fulfilled her sacred duties with unwavering resolve, never once voicing a complaint to her father. Only afterward did he realize her grin had hooded silent suffering. Behind her quiet exterior, Celia yearned for normal days, silently begging for rescue from the weight of sainthood. In her lowest moment, Alba extended out, providing her a space of peace and calm. Though she stayed a scientist and he a mere outcast, her dad expressed strong gratitude. Celia's dad, once proud and steady, humbly expressed his hope for her to live a regular days. Alba replied softly, promising not to laugh at the sincerity behind those remarks. Surprised by emotion, Alba struggled to speak as Celia beamed, praising her father's kindness. A request soon followed to accompany Celia to Kriana Academy. With that decision, a new chapter awaited them at the kingdom's most prestigious academy. Celia's dad expressed his hope for Alba to stand by her side, recognizing the strength he formerly displayed. Alba believed Celia also wished the same, though she hadn't voiced it aloud. She softly reassured Alba, telling him it was fine, though uncertainty remained in her words. Behind her smile, Alba sensed a hidden desire she was trying to conceal. Rather than agree outright, he warned her how dangerous the academy truly was. Warnings about dangerous men and school days spilled from Alba's mouth, trying to cause her reconsider. Eyes wide with surprise, she called out to him, touched by his concern. Rather than hesitate, she expressed hope of making friends and enjoying the experience. Though he argued about boring studies, her curiosity for new learning shone through. She welcomed the unknown, thrilled by the idea of adventure and change. Side by side, they smiled with shared resolve, choosing to face what lies ahead together. Logic insisted he should prevent the school and its dangers, but his core chose otherwise. Seeing her radiant face, he remembered that delight suited her far more than sorrow. Conviction grew in his gaze as he hugged his reckless decision with a steady heart. While she extended prayers of thanks, he grumbled, part joking about walking into holy doom. A sudden thought crossed his thoughts. Perhaps his arrival in this land wasn't by hope. The letter's final remarks hit him: never cause her cry or face a parent's wrath. Eventually, both placed foot on school grounds encircled by unfamiliar faces and new ways. Awestruck by the towering structure, they could hardly contain their excitement. No image or knowledge could match the overwhelming grandeur standing before them in actual days. Lined across the academy grounds were grand statues of a hero, goddess, and unicorn guardian. Celia admired them with wonder, while Alba tried to recall their connection to the game's plot. To stand safe, he reminded her to call him Al during their moment at Academy. Using a false identity as a knight apprentice, he aimed to dodge the fatal flags ahead. Surrounded by peers, he laughed nervously as Celia teased him, masking the truth behind his past. Thoughts of peril circled his head, especially with his blurred memory of the story's key seconds. Before long, whispers spread around them. Everyone began recognizing Celia as the true scientist. Caught off guard, both froze under the growing attention from nearby students. Cheers erupted, surrounding them in a crowd eager to touch, talk, and befriend her. The overwhelming praise pushed her to tears as voices called her name again and again. Crying welled up as she wished for nothing more than a normal, calm days. Abruptly, a loud surprise scattered the crowd, amazed faces stiff in awe and surprise. Without hesitation, he lifted her in his arms, declaring her presence was as a student, not a saint. His voice rose firm. He vowed to protect her, even if it cost him everything. Onlookers could only stare as the pair walked away, leaving behind a stunned silence. Ale walked beside Celia, exchanging light comments while onlookers misjudged his lord rank. From a distance, a person hesitated, recognizing something known in the pair ahead. Eyes widened in shock. An old acquaintance realized Alba was still alive and nearby. Celia eagerly led the way to the academy, her excitement shining as she called for Alba to follow. Alba remained before the grand entrance, overcome by the memories of a foretold doom awaiting him at this space. Sensing his uncertainty, Celia softly grasped his palm, reassuring him with calm resolve. Her shining grin and unwavering support reminded him he wasn't alone longer. Alba silently vowed to protect her, despite his earlier fear and doubt. Expressed his gratitude, feeling more composed thanks to Celia's calming presence. They walked together through the academy's elegant corridors, the grandeur reflecting its long-standing legacy. Standing before a sacred stained glass mural, Celia offered a silent prayer, hoping to remain close to him. Later, the staff member handed them uniforms and confirmed they were assigned to the same class. Their shared delight packed the room as they celebrated being put together. After receiving their uniforms, Alba and Celia chatted casually while heading outside the academy. Celia suddenly shouted Alba's name aloud, prompting him to remind her of his alias. Al. Before they could move on, a stern female surfaced, questioning Alba's name despite his disguise. The sight of her vivid red locks triggered memories buried close within Alba's head. She was Elena, his childhood friend, a destined heroine, and once his fiancée. Known as a key to Alba's downfall, her presence sparked tension. Celia hastily walked forth, introducing Alba as her knight apprentice and denying any mistaken identity. Elena wasn't convinced, calling out the simplicity of Alba's disguise, merely dropping part of his name. Frustrated, Celia defended him while Alba awkwardly tried to stay composed amid the misunderstanding and emotional swirl. Elena, unfazed, showed she had spread the rumor of his end after he disappeared, intensifying the awkward reunion. Without notice, Elena launched a fierce attack, weapons clashing as Alba stopped her sudden attack. Her words was cold and threatening, alert him to stop pretending or face her filled wrath. Shocked by her intensity, Alba realized she wasn't bluffing. Her eyes were filled with deadly resolve. As Celia yelled in surprise, Elena demanded his name previously again. With memories of his pledge echoing within, he braced to face whatever fate awaited him, no longer willing to flee. Alba replied with steady resolve, stating formally more that he was now Al, standing by his new name. Elena smiled coldly and accepted his words, but promised he'd feel the weight of his deception physically. In a blur of speed, she struck, delivering a punishing blow that sent Alba reeling with a cry. Remembered she was renowned in the game as its deadliest swordswoman. This wasn't a joke. Her piercing gaze showed no hesitation, only sharpened conviction, making it clear she wasn't done yet. Just as Elena's blade came crashing down, Alba instinctively called her name, eyes wide in alarm. A heartbeat afterward, he left from her sight, leaving her attack to slash only empty air. Elena spun, tracking his sudden movement, but Alba had already appeared behind her. In a split-second counter, he caught her blade mid-swing, holding it firmly against his shoulder. Elena froze in disbelief. Her attack had been completely stopped by the very one she'd aimed to punish. Calmly gripping the blade, Alba showed the staid power behind his strength, mana strength. He recalled the basics of elemental affinity from a book. Memories appeared of his story times when exploiting foe weaknesses was key to victory. Closing his eyes, Alba concentrated. A strange sensation welled up as he reached deep within to find his element. Through seasons of focused meditation and constant training, Alba finally awakened to his real attribute, lightning. Alba stood in solitude, channeling his strength to transform every part of his being. A surge of lightning erupted, reducing the rock before him to scorched debris. With mastery over lightning, he now possessed the ability to defy the end flag written in future. Returning to the academy, he stopped Elena's sword and urged her to listen. With honesty in his voice, he apologized, embracing his identity as Al, no longer just Alba. Overwhelmed by conflicting emotions, Elena screamed and slammed her blade into the ground, energy bursting out. Gasps rose from the crowd as both Alba and the scientist vanished without a trace. Left alone, Elena could only watch in silence as the bystanders looked on in disbelief. When asked if she was all right, she hid her shaken heart. Meanwhile, Alba and Celia regrouped in town, laughing nervously though. Her puffed cheeks revealed she wasn't entirely amused. Alba softly checked if Celia was upset, but she only sulked, questioning who Elena even was. Trying to mask her jealousy, Celia insisted she wasn't bothered despite clearly listing Elena's charms. Alba laughed warmly, teasing her with a smile, calling out her obvious lie. Celia bargained to be carried all the way, and Alba obliged without hesitation. As they walked, Alba realized existence at Kriana school was going to be anything but calm. Alba and Celia arrive at a large house in the royal capital, pausing before its tall gate amazed by its size. They compare it to their small mountain cabin, surprised by the luxury. Celia excitedly points out the vegetable garden, thrilled they can continue growing food like before. From above, the house stands out spacious, private, and clearly expensive. Inside, Celia explores eagerly while Alba carries their belongings into their new life. Alba sat on the bed, silently pleased with the peace of their new house. When checked about money, Celia replied with a blank stare she hadn't obtained any. At the dining table, she explained her dad's remarks if she hoped in ordinary days she had to earn it. Alba worried about their finances and insisted he would look for work. Smiling confidently, Celia declared she would support them both. Celia explained that her father had arranged for her to work at the church in the capital. She would serve as a saintess, a role blessed by the goddess and supported through donations. Despite the hardships she endured, her decision stemmed from a desire to help others. However, suspected a hidden motive behind the church's reliance on her presence. Seeing her grin, he moved away his concerns and said nothing. Alba insisted on working too, unable to sit back while Celia handled everything alone. He brushed off her efforts as misplaced and told her to save that care for someone she'd eventually marry. Crushed by his words, Celia tried to hold back her emotions, but her smile faded. She stormed off, saying she'd eat alone, leaving Alba stunned by her sudden anger. Lying on his bed, Alba tried to justify his words, but doubt crept in. Yuri's, the real hero of the story realm, waited as the ideal hero, handsome, aristocrat, and adored by all heroines. Meanwhile, Alba considered on the past 3 seasons, convincing alone that he had no space in Celia's future. Despite that, in the quiet countryside he welcomed Celia warmly. Together, they found joy in the simplicity of harvesting vegetables. Under the open sky, even mundane tasks like cooking and using unfamiliar baths proved shared seconds of chuckle and mastering. Under a star-filled sky, Celia marveled at the peaceful beauty surrounding them. She danced among the flowers, feeling truly relaxed for the first time in her life. With a radiant smile, she called out to Alba, her joy undeniable. Alba, lying alone, told himself he'd accept her departure but admitted he would miss her deeply. Afterward, Celia sent softly, her gaze apologetic, asking for forgiveness with calm sincerity. Alba rested quietly in bed, unaware of the presence beside him. Softly, Celia whispered his name, her tone occupied with calm gratitude. She gently leaned over and thanked him, believing she wouldn't be where she was without his support. As the morning sunlight rose, Alba woke to a calm room and birdsong outside the window. Still groggy, he sat up slowly, puzzled at when he had even fallen asleep. Alba discovered a packed meal and a heartfelt note from Celia, apologizing and heading off to the church. Gratefully, he enjoyed the food, savoring the familiarity of a hamburger in this strange world. Realizing she was already working, he jumped up with renewed resolve to find his own job. His destination was the towering structure of the Adventurers Guild. There, countless missions awaited, ranging from simple tasks to dangerous battles with magic beasts. The Adventurers Guild was filled with hardened fighters, those who sought riches or fame through danger. Alba noted that while adventuring wasn't required in the original game, it was now the fastest way to earn money. A great paying quest to slay a massive mana beast found his attention. Though inexperienced, he felt confident in the strength he had gained over the years. His confidence wavered. However, when veterans laughed, pointing out he wasn't qualified for such a high-level quest. The Guild's adventurer system was built around star ranks earned through completed quests and contributions. Without increasing that rank, high-paying, dangerous missions remained out of reach. Alba was welcomed at the beginner-level reception designated for new adventurers. He registered with determination, fully aware he had to start from the bottom. With a low-star request in hand, Alba prepared to begin his first official quest. Assigned to a beginner herb collection quest, Alba accepted the low reward without complaint. Knowing he had to start small, unable to afford a carriage, he prepared to run the distance on foot. In a flash, his sudden burst of speed startled nearby townspeople as he zoomed past. He sprinted like lightning, confident in his incredible physical strength. Elsewhere, students chatted casually about rent and the burdens of dorm life in the capital, while 2 students discussed their fortune of attending Kriana Academy. Something unexpected stirred the air. A powerful gust swept past them, disrupting the calm street with a sudden burst of wind. One girl stumbled in surprise, unsure of what had just happened, while her friend called it incredible. As they gathered themselves, she turned toward a familiar figure, Yuri's. With a casual smile, he dismissed her concern and urged Alice to keep moving. Alice continued shopping while Yuri's walked beside her, both unaware of the approaching presence. Alba appeared nearby, sensing a known aura that chosen him freeze in space. Their routes finally crossed. Alba and Yuri's met each other in stillness. A hand grasped a cluster of rare herbs nestled among jagged cliffs and dense greenery. The lad knelt triumphantly, his pack filled, completing the herb-gathering quest with ease and a cheerful grin. Days in the remote highlands for 3 seasons had sharpened his instincts and strength back at the guild. He handed over the herbs, surprising the staff with his swift return. They questioned the impossible speed, but he casually claimed he just ran fast, earning his reward without hesitation. Alba reviewed his modest earnings from the herb quest. Meanwhile, Celia addressed a massive crowd, delivering a divine prayer that stirred awe among her followers. Her presence alone inspired joy, and in the same time span, she earned over 10 times more than Alba. Elsewhere, Alba treated himself to ramen. Fascinated by the city's comforts, reflecting on his past, he acknowledged his relatives in the capital stayed remote strangers after he ran away. While finishing his meal, Alba thought on how his relatives never bothered to correct the rumors of his end. He remembered the capital held people like Elena, who knew him a danger he hadn't met in the highlands. Remaining vigilant was crucial. One careless step could trigger a death flag he couldn't foresee. Abruptly, a runaway horse cut through the street, causing turmoil among the startled crowd. A junior maiden froze in fear, unable to move as the beast rushed directly toward her. The girl waited stiff as the raging horse barreled toward her with unstoppable power. In the next instant, a bright blue burst returned between them, halting the beast's charge. She seemed up in disbelief, only to find herself safe. A voice calmly asked if she was all right. Alba stood over the subdued horse, the crowd staring in disbelief at the outcome. Relieved, the girl nodded as Alba smiled, ensuring she hadn't suffered even a scratch. Alba gently apologized to the horse while the girl expressed her gratitude, still shaken from the close call. Her look remained as she questioned about his face, making Alba alarm at the possibility of memory. Cheers erupted from the surrounding crowd, drawing more attention than he wanted. Though reluctant, he had acted instinctively, unable to ignore someone in danger. As the night approached, Alba feared his identity might soon be exposed. A commanding knight arrived, flanked by guards, radiating authority as the crowd fell silent. Recognizing him instantly, the girl called out his name, Duke Roy Arashia, startling Alba. She introduced herself formally, recalling their brief meeting at a past ceremony. While she explained Alba's heroic act, he grew uneasy at the mention of the Arashia name. Roy smiled, offering gratitude, but Alba now suspected he was face to face with his older brother. Alba stood stiffly, mind racing. He couldn't afford to let the Duke discover his true identity. Questioned Alba's silence, prompting awkward tension between the three of them. With a forced grin, Alba politely laughed off the thanks and tried to endure his leave. But as he turned, Roy called out, recognizing a familiar presence in the voice. Alba froze, heart pounding, as Roy mentioned his resemblance to a foolish younger brother. He deflected Roy's request, insisting his face wasn't worthy of a duke's attention. The sharp reply arrived hastily. Roy wasn't asking for permission. He demanded to see it alone. A piercing glare forced Alba to freeze, the command to look ringing louder than expected before Alba could respond. Another words broke in, addressing him by a known nickname. Awareness dawned across their faces as shock and realization collided all at formally. Elena Persia made a confident entrance, greeting Roy with commanding presence. From Alba's perspective, her arrival spelled calamity as alarm rushed through him. He felt cornered, Elena ahead, Roy behind, both capable of uncovering his true identity. Roy questioned Elena, who replied without uncertainty, identifying Alba as a squire called Al. To his surprise, Elena covered for him, casually explaining his lateness like a trusted companion. Roy cast a suspicious glance at Elena, demanding an explanation for her claim. Feigning confidence, she insisted the man was named Al, not Alba. With a quiet grin, Elena reminded them she had formerly been Alba's fiancée. Surely, she wouldn't mistake him. Found between their scrutinizing gaze, Alba waited frozen, silently praying they'd stop digging deeper. Masking his doubt, apologized. Alba forced a grin, pushing it off, though his core sank at hearing, personally dismissed as a disgraced brother, no longer worth remembering. With Alba felt to be long dead, Roy turned his attention to Mina, giving her an aristocrat escort house. Before departing, Mina expressed her gratitude to Al, her eyes bright with respect. As the group walked away, Alba and Elena stood behind in silence, watching the knights disappear into the crowd. Their gazes met, no words talked, yet understanding elapsed silently between them. Her quick considering had protected his name and spared him from peril. Alba tried to retreat silently, relieved that his name had survived the disorder undiscovered, or so he thought. Before he could vanish, a sharp voice stopped him in his tracks. A blade flashed past his cheek. Elena remained steady, her sword ready, calling him by name without delay. She warned him not to feign ignorance again, or she'd reveal his identity herself. Cornered, Alba surrendered with a sigh, admitting defeat before school had even begun. Life in the capital moved forward while Mina prayed. Others played and argued. Unaware of the secrets unfolding nearby, Alba continued his journey, pursued by faces tied to fate. A new term began at Kriana Academy, where students from across the realm gathered in bright uniforms. The eccentric principal welcomed them with fervent energy, declaring their futures blessed by fate and divine guidance. Among the students, Alba and Celia stepped forward. As Alba looked around, unease crept in. This was where danger would truly begin. 5 potential paths awaited, each tied to a heroine and each linked to Alba's eventual doom. Alba realized he was already entangled in both Celia's and Elena's storylines, increasing his risks. Fortunately, the princess heroine was a staid figure, unlikely to appear during his occasion at the school. Lily, the sage's disciple, and Alice, the protagonist's childhood friend, were in his grade, demanding caution. A sudden shift in the crowd caught Alba's attention. Someone crucial had arrived. Standing confidently was Yuri's, the story's fulfilled hero and Alba's biggest danger. In most scenarios, the enemy never escapes future, always falling before the hero's palm. Staring one another down, Yuri's and Alba sensed the tension of predetermined roles. Fear gripped Alba as he vowed to avoid Yuri's at all costs, determined to survive. With calm resolve, he chose a firm decision to never stand out within the school walls. Assigned to the unicorn dorm, Alba prepared to fade into the background. Alba slouched in his seat, aware of every glance thrown their way. Celia's presence drew a crowd. Whispers packed the room, marveling at the scientess and questioning her unexpected features at the institute. Celia introduced herself happily, but Alba knew her desire for a normal institute days was slipping away. With a radiant smile, she declared herself just another first year in the unicorn class. Despite her request to be treated as an equal, the students couldn't hide their awe. Celia's charm spread like wildfire, effortlessly winning over every student in the room. But murmurs of recognition stirred. Some students sensed something oddly familiar about Alba. Tension thickened as whispers grew. Alba sat surrounded, dreading the rising suspicion. Though disguised, he hated the aristocrat students might uncover his real name. Despite his protests, Celia introduced him warmly, calling for acceptance of her awkward but kind friend. Thanks to Celia's influence, the class welcomed Alba without hesitation, surprising even him. Polite greetings continued, and one recognizable tone held Alba. Elena. Elena confirmed she was also in the unicorn class, her tone calm but sharp admiration. For her beauty and strength packed the room, while Alba silently admitted the fact. Behind his unease, he remembered she knew him, her former fiancé, not just a student called Al. Celia was shocked to learn that Alba and Elena had once been engaged, unable to hide her surprise. Alba couldn't believe fate had brought him face to face with his former fiancée after years apart. He confirmed he had left his old life behind, choosing to escape his past and start anew. Explaining demise, omens, or reincarnation looked pointless. She would never understand the peril he carried. Elena revealed the engagement was broken off without reason, while rumors of his death had spread wildly. Alba joked about their mutual hatred, while Elena revealed her family had been relieved the engagement ended. She listed his past flaws bluntly, admitting she had formerly considered outcome his days herself. But the thought of his death had moved her unexpectedly. She confessed she had cried. Memories of childhood returned, when her father rejected her for being unladylike and too strong. Back then, Alba had comforted her with simple words, accepting her as she was. Elena. A quiet confession slipped out. There was never any hatred back then. Those words stirred uncertainty, hinting at a past untold by the game's original narrative. Saving someone in danger and standing beside the scientist painted a different image than expected. Support happened without delay, a promise to knight the secret from the Academy's scrutiny. Gratitude shone in his smile as trust formed silently between them. A condition was set: help in exchange for managing the suitors flocking since the broken engagement. That agreement resurfaced afterward, confirmed with a simple gesture between two known faces. Surprise swirled in Celia's thoughts, overcome by talk of promises and former relationships. Her curiosity burst forth, demanding clarity from the one person who could explain formality. Melted as both girls agreed to speak freely, recognizing each other as equals. Polite greetings turned into admiration as classmates praised both Celia's cuteness and Elena's charm. An attempt at teasing was met with suspicion, as Celia questioned the shared secret between her friends. Interrupting the moment, a sharp voice challenged Alba's position, mocking his proximity to two admired girls confused and unimpressed. Alba asked who the stranger was, triggering a harsh insult in return. Recognition followed. Elena calmly explained that the arrogant intruder was Walby. Count Walgut's eldest son. Walby's flirtation continued shamelessly, much to everyone's discomfort. Confidence oozed from every word as he made bold marriage claims, treating the academy like a proposal ground. He insisted any noble would be honored to marry Elena, certain his own lineage was more than enough. Talk of alliances and benefits packed the silence, pushing personal feelings away. He rejected the noble's approach outright, not for Elena's sake, but because he despised entitled men like him. Alba confronted Walby, stating he never understood Elena's true value as a person. Celia and the others reacted with surprise and support, impressed by Alba's sincerity. Walby, enraged, threw down a handkerchief and challenged him in front of the class. The gesture signaled a formal duel, leaving Alba completely stunned and cornered. A loud declaration shakes the classroom as a duel is announced between two students. Alba, confused by the sudden commotion, stands at the center as encouragement and tension build around him. The school's rules explain that duels are allowed if they defend one's honor, provided they don't lead to demise. To begin, a special handkerchief must be offered and accepted to formalize the challenge. All duels must endure home inside the school's designated arena under official supervision. Kate Sith, the official witness cat, cheerfully introduces himself to oversee the duel. The crowd gathers as Aru and Warubi face each other in the dueling arena, tension rising. Onlookers react with admiration and concern, impressed that Aru accepted the challenge without hesitation. Shaken, Aru silently panics, oblivious of the Institute's complex dueling rules. Before the fight begins, both duelists are ordered to state the pride or cause they are defending. According to the original game, the duel system was merely a side mechanic, never linked to Alba's fatal endings. Driven by pride, Warubi taunts Alba with a harsh ultimatum involving Elena, escalating the tension. Instead of backing down, Alba agrees to the duel, convinced it won't trigger any doom. He boldly sets his terms, demanding Warubi keep his distance if defeated. With both sides sworn in, the duel officially commences under Kate Sith's watch. Cheers erupt from the crowd as Aru and Warubi square off, standing ready in the center of the arena. Among the spectators, Elena explains that Warubi is renowned for his overwhelming fire magic prowess. With a wicked grin, Warubi begins a fierce incantation, summoning devastating flames with malicious intent. Kate Sith quickly identifies the chant as a powerful fire spell, leaving Aru visibly concerned. Without hesitation, Warubi unleashes his spell, launching the searing hell flame directly at his opponent. A massive explosion erupts across the arena as Warubi's fire spell detonates with overwhelming force. Spectators watch in shock, some screaming Alba's name, fearing he's been consumed by the blast. Warubi boasts about Alba's defeat, laughing arrogantly and questioning if a fatal outcome even matters. Kate Sith remains still, calmly remarking that intervention isn't necessary just yet. From the smoke, Alba reappears unscathed, leaving Warubi stunned by his unexpected survival. Warubi reels in disbelief as Alba appears behind him, having closed the distance in a blink. Observers are stunned as Alba effortlessly dodges attacks and even intercepts a blade mid-swing. One girl calmly analyzes his technique, revealing that Alba became lightning itself rather than casting it. The crowd murmurs in awe, realizing he bypassed standard magic through sheer mastery of transformation. To her, Alba's ability rivals even the legendary sage, a feat nearly unimaginable. Lily, a heroine and the sage's disciple, quietly vows to never lose, her determination unwavering. Charging once more, Warubi prepares the same fiery spell, intent on overwhelming Alba this time. Alba calmly warns him mid-cast, pointing out the flaw and opening left by that chant. As the flames surge forward, Alba remains still, analyzing and waiting for the perfect moment. Without hesitation, he counters instantly, launching Warubi skyward with a powerful lightning-charged blow. Warubi is hurled through the silence, landing tough outside the arena. Shaken by Alba's magic, Kate Sith declares the match over, announcing Alba as the victor, while Alba questions his own force. Cheers erupt from the audience as medic cat Kate Nurse rushes in to treat the fallen duelist. Spectators marvel at Alba's chantless casting, calling it unbelievable and extraordinary. Among the crowd, Yuri's and Alice acknowledge the display, glad they came to witness the duel. Spectators are stunned as they realize Alba's victory wasn't due to brute force but precision. Rather than striking Warubi, Alba had only extended his arm without making physical contact. At such intense speed, the motion alone created a shockwave strong enough to send Warubi flying. Kate Sith confirms the technique's insane difficulty, leaving Alice in disbelief at Alba's power. Despite Alba's feat, Alice hints others might possess equally terrifying potential within the academy. Yuri's observes the entire duel, analyzing every detail with sharp, confident eyes. Alice questions whether Yuri's could defeat Alba, pointing out his ability to track movements. Though dismissive at first, Yuri's admits he'd only fight if someone dear to him were harmed. With a quiet intensity, he declares that he wouldn't lose, should that moment ever come. Meanwhile, Alba receives a warm welcome from his friends, unaware of Yuri's silent resolve. Elena and her friend praise Alba's strength, impressed by the unexpected display of power. Alba reveals that his abilities were honed during isolated mountain training, away from prying eyes, and narrator reflects on the game's mechanics, recalling that Alba could have become the final boss with enough effort, with proper growth. His potential surpasses even the protagonist, elevating him to unmatched levels. Recognizing this truth, Alba reaffirms his strength while someone silently celebrates their belief in him. Alba confidently explains his change, declaring himself reborn after embracing effort and discipline. When Celia questions his past, Elena bluntly recalls Alba's former self as the worst kind of person. Despite that, Celia smiles, declaring Alba now the most wonderful person in her eyes. He huckles at his own excess, while Celia defends his actions in Elena's name. Elena, ever calm, reassures them she can heal anyone Alba roughs up if needed. She thanks Alba sincerely for stepping in and fighting the duel on her behalf. With a confident grin, Alba reminds her of the promise he'd taken to protect her no whatever what. Hearing those words, Elena quietly acknowledges the bond they now share. Kate Sith assures him the duel didn't trigger any death flags, or so Alba thought, unseen by him. Future begins to shift peacefully, stage new events into motion. New contenders begin appearing across the academy one after another, drawing attention from every key figure. Alba slept soundly while the sun rose over the peaceful town. Celia cheerfully called out, announcing breakfast, still unresponsive. Alba was met with an unorthodox wake-up method as Celia jumped on top of him, forcing him awake. At the table, Alba admired the meal, noting how much Celia's cooking had improved through mountain practice. They enjoyed breakfast together, and Alba offered to cook dinner next. Before he left, Celia handed Alba his lunchbox. Holding the lunchbox in his palm, Alba stopped, momentarily distracted by an old knowledge. They left together, walking side by side through the lively streets, discussing their differing views on academy life. At the grand gates of Kriana Academy, they were greeted warmly by classmates as morning classes began. Despite his boredom, Alba admitted days at academy had become strangely quiet. Since that first duel, no ominous signs had emerged during class. Celia stayed focused while Elena impressed the teacher. Al, however, remained distracted and inattentive. Walking the halls, he noticed the other students avoided him. His power during the duel had clearly left a strong impression. Although his isolation kept him safe from trouble, the quiet distance made him feel strangely alone. As classmates gathered for lunch, Celia realized Al was missing again. Away from the crowd, Al napped peacefully, already having finished his lunch early. In the game's logic, sharing lunch with a heroine was a key to deepening bonds, raising favorability through simple acts. Alba, however, remained cautious. Lying under a tree, he decided isolation, hoping to avoid any omens that could seal his fate. His nap was interrupted by a girl asking to join him for lunch, leaving him startled. She smiled gently, expressing thanks for a past favor. To his shock, it was the maiden he'd once rescued, now holding a lunch just for him. With sincere gaze, the maiden gave Alba a handmade bento to express her gratitude. Found off soldier, he froze, noticing he was in the middle of another possible lunch event. As she stood quietly, he stared, unsure who she even was. Fleeing through the girls in his thoughts, he realized she didn't match any of them. That meant one thing: she wasn't a main heroine, but a side character instead. Alba smiled and accepted the bento, thanking Mina with genuine warmth for her thoughtful gesture. He reassured himself there was no harm in enjoying it and gladly opened the box, impressed by its neat presentation. Under a shady tree, he ate with enthusiasm while Mina beamed with joy at his compliments. She agreed to drop formalities, calling him simply Al as they grew more comfortable. Still, he hesitated, concerned that being close to him might isolate her too. Mina smiled brightly, declaring that her decision to stay by Alba's side wasn't influenced by anyone's opinion. As they laughed together, Alba realized she was surprisingly bold and sincere, unlike any character he'd known. Inspired by her spirit, he promised to support her however he could. Their moment was interrupted by a recognizable tone incoming with sarcasm. Celia emerged, angry that Alba had declined her lunch yet accepted another maiden's instead. Alba panicked, quickly clarifying that the situation was a misunderstanding. Both girls exchanged a glance, Celia stern and silent, Mina calm yet unreadable, while Alba stood between them. As Mina walked away, she muttered something under her breath, identifying Celia as the scientist. Alba explained Mina's background and how they first met during a past incident in town. Realizing she might be more involved than expected, Alba acknowledged that the next event was about to begin. The headmaster announced Kriana Academy's first major in-game event, a field trip designed to strengthen bonds between students. Participants would fight sorcery monsters and gather herbs, giving a hands-on tutorial in Niobe Woods. Though the creatures were weak, the event's significance made it a major turning point. Depending on options chosen, relationships could deepen or end, omens could be triggered. With excitement and tension rising, the students marched toward Niobe Forest together. Celia admitted her nerves about facing magic beasts, but Alba reassured her, reminding her they weren't alone. Towering cliffs loomed ahead as the class entered Niobe Forest, the true stage for the upcoming trial. Elena confidently stepped forward, easing everyone's tension with her strong presence. Even the teacher radiated bravado, encouraging the students to stay close and rely on his protection. But Alba knew better soon. The teacher would face a moment where confidence alone wouldn't be enough. One option was to assist Celia in healing injured students, a route packed with compassion and core-pounding seconds. Anatha route led to Elena's side, where direct combat would forge strength through real battles. Alternatively, joining the energetic heroine meant diving deeper into danger to rescue the childhood friend Alice. The fourth way kept unclear, bound to a maiden who reached everything boring. Among these four choices, Alba had to decide his next move carefully. Alba considered his options carefully, knowing the hero's features meant critical decisions rested ahead. The other students split into groups. Elena took charge of the fighters, while Celia led those gathering herbs. Meanwhile, the remaining heroines continued their own roles, blending into the woods' cycle as the event progressed. Their teacher urged caution as they approached the magical beast habitat. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. Something about the area felt disturbingly off. A rustling in the underbrush triggered alarm. Something far beyond normal was emerging. Abruptly, a terrifying horde of massive creatures burst from the woods, charging forth with fury. The teacher yelled in alarm, noticing it wasn't an ordinary encounter. It was a stampede. Turmoil flared among the students as they scrambled for peace, while a strange presence was sensed nearby. Standing firm, Alba clenched his fists. The real event had begun. A massive stampede of magical monsters rushed toward the school. With the battle event underway, orders were issued to evacuate. Tension spread as the woods shook under the creatures' advance. Leading the charge were fierce monsters, each one more menacing than the last, roaring and charging without restraint. Amidst uncertainty, the hero remained his ground. His role in this combat would shape his relationship with the girls yet. He knew the danger getting closer to them only brought him closer to his doom. Met with a difficult decision, he thought on the route that stood ahead as the girls' voices echoed in his thoughts. His strategy proved clear: follow the original enemy's example and disengage from the unfolding disorder without delay, rather than battle. He turned his back on the battlefield, sprinting toward peace, while others called out in surprise. Students escaped through the woods, unaware of the risk creeping closer. A monstrous beast suddenly ambushed them, cutting off their escape. As the beast lunged, Celia cried out for Alba, unable to find him among the chaos. Abruptly, a blinding surge of ability flared. He reappeared, releasing a devastating attack to protect them all. Relief spread across Celia's face as she saw him standing tall, no longer running away. He urged her to departure, but the wounded needed help, and Celia moved forth without uncertainty. Though afraid, she decided to stand, channeling her healing mana to save a dead ally. Celia seemed up at Alba, her words steady as she pleaded for him to protect everyone in her space. Her faith in him was unwavering, sparking something deeper within his resolve. Forget logic, he clenched his fist, pushing away thoughts of end omens and destiny. Smiling at his own hesitation, He vowed to act not out of fear but for those who believed in him. Elsewhere, another heroine held her ground, fiercely battling a monstrous foe. Elena attacked forth with precision, clashing fiercely against the insectoid creature without uncertainty. While shielding her allies, she unleashed a powerful blast, forcing the others to retreat from danger. Alba soon reached her side, concerned but impressed by her strength and determination. With a friendly grin, he acknowledged her capabilities, giving trust rather than orders. After entrusting the area to Elena, he turned away, preparing to dive deeper into the forest peril. The key to outcome the event stood in the woods' depths: defeat the boss, and everything would cease. Alba carved his way forward, obliterating monsters as he pushed deeper toward the objective. Yet unease crept in. Something about the beast didn't align with his memories. The event should have only featured weak enemies and a comical boss named Pipshuranam instead. The forest teemed with mid-game monsters far beyond the intended difficulty. Alba began to question if his changed behavior was affecting the flow of the scenario itself. Instead of the original weak boss, he now waited before a massive three-headed chimera and foe from far later in the story. With a sharp glare, he confirmed the situation. This boss had no place in a tutorial. From behind the beast, a girl recognized him and called out in desperation. Her name was Alice, and though she introduced herself cheerfully, she was clearly in danger. Alice, showed to be one of the girls and Yuri's childhood friend, had been caught by the chimera while misplaced. Unable to ignore her plight, Alba rushed in, determined not to abandon anyone. He hit with filled strength, causing a devastating attack aimed directly at the beast's crown. The chimera staggered but stood firm, barely budging under the blow. To Alba's shock, his strike had failed. It didn't even leave a scratch. Alice yelled a critical notice. Chimera's weakness wasn't fixed, it shifted over moment. All visual breakdown confirmed that the creature alternated between being weak to physical or magic attacks depending on its phase. Realization struck Alba. His current attacks were ineffective because the chimera resisted magic now. In the game, success required teamwork. Celia's spells and Elena's sword played key roles. Without delay, Alba launched in again, adjusting his strategy mid-air. Alba formed a quick plan. He'd close the gap with magic and land a physical blow. With momentum behind him, he launched a fierce punch straight into the chimera's face. The impact landed, but the beast barely flinched. The attack failed to do real damage. In retaliation, the chimera released a devastating attack, forcing Alba to defend under burden. Frustrated and unarmed, he realized brute strength alone wouldn't be enough to win. As Alice cried out, the snake head of the chimera coiled around her, dragging her into its crushing grip. Before it could finish, a sudden slash tore through the coils, severing the threat in an instant. Alba froze as the chimera recoiled, clearly struck by a new presence on the battlefield. Emerging from the dust, Yuri stood tall, cradling Alice protectively in his arms. Their reunion was quiet but heartfelt. She had trusted he would come, and he hadn't failed her. Yuri's met the chimera head-on, instructing Alice to remain back as the beast roared in challenge. Without hesitation, he charged, driving his blade toward the monster's core. His quiet demeanor broke under his remarks, lay fury for those who harmed someone dear. Just as his sword struck, the creature retaliated, deflecting the blow. Alba watched, impressed yet alert. Alice warned him the chimera had already shifted phases, altering its weakness once again. Yuri's realized physical strikes were useless. Now the chimera had entered its magic vulnerable phase. Alba seized the moment, unleashing a massive burst of lightning magic directly into the beast. The twin heads roared in pain, reeling from the force of the impact. Yuri's kept the burden on, holding the chimera's attention and buying moment for another attack. Despite their rivalry, he acknowledged Alba's strength. Teaming up was their best shot at survival. They finally remained side by side, stage away tension to finish the combat hastily. Alba and Yuri's confront a massive chimera beast blocking the mountain path, its growls shaking the ground. Without hesitation, Alba takes command, and Yuri's prepares to fight by his side. Trusting his judgment, they both charge forth at filled speed, mana and steel flaring as they close in on the beast. Yuri's attacks with a magical blast, striking the chimera's face, forcing it to roar in pain. In a synchronized strike, Alba slashes while Yuri's leaps from above, delivering a powerful final blow. Charging together, Alba and Yuri's coordinate a follow-up attack while a girl watches from the battlefield. Smiling calmly, she comments on the beast's misfortune for facing such a formidable team. Even when the creature deflects Alba's spell, Yuri's blade breaks through with relentless strength. Conversely, when it counters Yuri's sword, Alba's magic pierces through from another angle together. Their unbreakable synergy overwhelms all opposition, earning the girl's admiration. With his sword raised great, Yuri's waited victorious amid the fading storm of their fight. Alba, calm and confident, displayed the magical prowess that transformed him into living lightning. Electric energy burst outward as Alba landed a crushing blow against the massive beast. Meanwhile, Yuri's sharp instincts and unmatched swordsmanship proved he was no less formidable. Their combined strength earned gratitude from allies who celebrated the safe rescue of Aris. Curious, the boy asked how Alba knew his name, prompting light-hearted explanations from the others. They reminisce about growing up in the same village where Yuri's earned the title of strongest. Relieved, the boy expresses how glad he is that everything ended safely. He then explains that Aris is like a younger sister to him, nothing more. Disappointed, the maiden silently reacts, hiding her feelings behind a faint grin and teasing remark. The group prepared to part ways, each returning to their assigned squads after the battle. Despite their offer to walk together, Alba firmly refused, blaming their presence for his misfortunes. With a sincere smile, the boy expressed his gratitude, promising to never forget Alba's help. Their silhouettes faded into the distance, bound by a fate that cast them as future enemies. Left behind, Alba muttered wistfully, wishing Yuri's had been a little easier to hate. Left alone near the dead beast, Alba remained in quiet, scratching his crown in thought. His senses flared something or someone was nearby, hidden just out of sight, pointing toward the tree. He spoke plainly, certain the presence had observed the fight. Though the person stayed unseen, he considered the possibility of concealment sorcery. Activating his lightning form, Alba showed he could still feeling their presence through the silence. With narrowed gaze, Alba demanded the stayed person to reveal themselves without delay. A shimmer of sorcery broke apart, and to his shock, a maiden emerged from thin air. She introduced herself as Lily, calmly declaring she was one of the main heroines. Alba reacted with frustration, realizing his name was widely known due to a past duel. Lily explained she had only been observing, arriving during the heat of their earlier battle, showed she'd only heard rumors from her teacher Alba's strength was a rare type of advanced mana. He misunderstood her gesture, thought she referred to the killed chimera, which stood still nearby. Suddenly, the chimera's body began dissolving into glowing fragments, leaving no trace behind. Shocked, both observed in disbelief as the beast left completely into the silence. Calmly, Lily explained it had been a magical construct from another dimension, its form unsustainable without mana. Alba stared in confusion as Lily's explanation flew over his head. The basics of fire making were illustrated tools creating heat by friction, but the rules of their world didn't allow such effects to occur naturally via magic. Lily elaborated that magic required harmony with nature. With a diagram, she explained that sorcery didn't create actual fire, it replicated it from another realm through meddling. Realization hit Alba, both his lightning powers and the chimera they'd met were projections unsheathed from a separate dimension's reality. Unknown sorcerer had used magic to replicate a chimera from another world. Because it was only a magical construct, it vanished once the sustaining mana was exhausted. Realizing this, Alba suspected someone powerful was behind the summoning, someone targeting them intentionally. Elsewhere, two mysterious figures discussed the event, impressed that a student had defeated the chimera. They acknowledged the strength of the school, calling it one of the three great powers beside the regal relatives and the church. The two hooded women remained atop a cliff, one admitting her mana couldn't function without mana down below. Alba declared they would retreat for now, certain the enemy would return another day. Dominant sorceress laughed off the failure, blaming her unsuitability for teamwork and leaving the rest to her companion. Reflecting on the scene, Alba realized the story was no longer following the story's expected route. He questioned whether the beast-summoning magician was linked to the doom omens bound to his future. Looking to the distant cliffs, Alba firmly declared he would show no mercy to those who stood against him. With the chimera gone, he assumed the forest was safe and suggested returning, but Lily interrupted with a question. Alba admitted he was self-taught, never having learned magic from anyone else. Surprised by his answer, Lily found it amusing and intriguing. With a gentle grin, she admitted that he had sparked her interest. As Lily walked away, Alba suddenly remembered why this event was key to deepening their bond. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Institute, Shiria worked alongside Alba during rescue missions. Mastering the beast had left, Irena fought bravely with her team, confirming that the creature was only a magical replica. Eris and Yuri's realized it had all been someone's spell and protected others from the threat. Now Alba's goal was clear: he needed to display his power to Lily and gain her interest. Alba panicked as he realized he had triggered doom flags with every main heroine he met. Still, the students celebrated together, oblivious of the looming peril that stayed unresolved. Watching them reunite joyfully, Alba felt relieved that no one had been seriously hurt. Far away, the academy's headmaster received a report on the incident and began piecing together the enemy's possible intent. In the shadows, the mysterious sorceress and her followers prepared their next move against the academy. The mysterious lady observed with a confident grin, her idea silently unfolding from the shadows. Meanwhile, Alba waited steady with his allies, prepared to protect the school and confront whatever risk came next. Strange activity was reported close in the woods, where a magical beast disturbance broke the region's quiet. The dense trees hid something unusual. A knight commander arrived with his unit, issuing orders to search the entire forest thoroughly. The mission was treated with urgency. Among the knights, one man focused intently. He speculated that their target might be a first-year student, raising concern. Elsewhere, students gathered after field training. Their instructor confirmed they'd lodged there for the night. They approached a magical inn, oblivious that peril loomed beyond the quiet surroundings. After arriving, the students casually discussed the academy's bold choice to turn serious incidents into part of their curriculum. Curiosity stirred among them. Some believed the beast attack was part of a simulated lesson, though a few admitted it had felt genuinely frightening. One of the older students reasoned that the school probably decided to keep the fact live to prevent unnecessary fear. Elsewhere, a few upperclassmen quietly speculated that someone among the students might have experienced something unusual, just as they once had. Though surprise remained, the maiden promised to explain everything, easing the tension before they entered the inn. Inside the inn, one boy rolled around on the tatami floor, embracing the traditional feel while his friends watched and laughed at his antics. Delighted by the blend of Japanese and Western elements, he praised the world's flexibility and attention to detail. As hunger set in, another student reminded the group that dinner would follow their time in the bath. Abruptly, a story-like interface emerged, prompting a decision to peek or not to peek at the girls' bath. Although tempting, such an act would drastically reduce affection levels, ending any romantic possibilities with the heroines. Alba hesitated as he weighed a hidden game option. Choosing it could cost him trust, but perhaps it could also break free from his destruction flag. While he deliberated, the girls enjoyed their moment in the hot spring, oblivious they were being observed in someone's head or possibly reality. Their peaceful conversation turned to Alba's past engagement with Irena. Questions about his current feelings lingered in the steamy air. Meanwhile, Alba stood confidently among the boys in the men's bath, pretending nothing was amiss. Closed down, he insisted his motives were lured all to escape a doomed fate. In the middle of the bathhouse, Alba was startled when another boy caught him standing blankly, drawing unexpected attention. Trained to play it off, Alba muttered excuses, but his friend teased him with a knowing smirk and praised his timing. That evening, under the crescent moon, small remarks of gratitude were shared about Alba's help during a past crisis. As they soaked together, one girl questioned another about her feelings toward Alba, hinting at a growing interest. Both girls quietly admitted admiration for him, praising his strength and kindness, though neither fully understood their own emotions. A lively maiden walked out of the bath, happily announcing that Alba had rescued her too. The others turned to her in surprise. She introduced herself as Persia, from the Holy Wolf group, while the others shared their names and relaxed in the spring's warmth. Under the moonlit sky, Persia recalled how Alba had saved her from a chimera. The others quietly agreed on his strength and bravery. However, concern returned as they discussed how someone had used artificial beasts to target students. Fear lingered in their thoughts. Abruptly, Persia charged at one maiden playfully, causing smile and startled screams to echo through the bathhouse. While the girls continued teasing and bonding, one of them made a bold comment, leading to a comically intense reaction from the others. Abruptly, Alba was flung into the air, an electric jolt escaping through him as loud crashing noises flared nearby, alarming everyone. To their shock, he crash-landed into the girls' bath area. All three screamed in unison, scandalized by his sudden and awkward arrival. A furious staff member launched a barrel straight at Alba, labeling him a shameless intruder as he wailed in protest. Back in the men's bath, Alba's friend sighed, acknowledging Alba's intentions but reminded him that peeking still had consequences. After Alba's electric mishap, he floated dazed in the hot spring, while the other boys lay shocked from the aftershock. Staring at the sky, Alba wondered if the chaotic series of events could at least count as a successful event. Later, Persia bowed her head in apology. Her antics had triggered the chain reaction, and she admitted it with a sheepish laugh. The group gathered in yukata, exchanging apologies and laughter over the commotion. Alba still looked slightly annoyed. As teasing resumed, the mood lightened. Though Alba's embarrassment lingered, affection scores may have dropped. But so did everyone's guard. Yuri's and Persia explained that their village revered the goddess of fate, and from childhood they were taught to respect the saint. That respect, however, didn't stop Alice from grabbing the saint's chest earlier, prompting embarrassed reactions from the group, formally introduced alone as Alice's childhood friend, while the girls reappeared the gesture, turning their names and smiling politely. Encouraged by their friendliness, Yuri's asked everyone to treat him casually as a peer, not with honorifics or formality. While the group laughed together, Alba stood silently to the side, watching the bonds forming around him grow deeper. As dinner time approached, Alba announced he'd head out first. The others cheerfully followed soon after. Though he kept a straight face, Alba admitted to himself just a little that he felt jealous of Yuri's. A spread of delicious dishes awaited the group, filling the air with warmth and anticipation. Everyone began eating together. Alba devoured his food with enthusiasm, while the girls enjoyed the meal with delighted expressions. Midway through, Alba asked if anyone had seen Mina, a first-year student. Their silence suggested something was amiss. Alba and the others noticed Irena's tense expression. When checked, she silently showed that Mina's parents, heads of the Rupika family, were in peril. Without hesitation, she added the devastating news: Mina's parents had been murdered. The atmosphere grew heavy with silence. Far from the others, Mina collapsed beside her bed, overwhelmed by grief. Her childhood treasures surrounded her, untouched. A family photo rested on her table, staring at it through crying. She couldn't comprehend why such tragedy hit her house. Clutching the edge of the desk, Mina cried out, her voice trembling, begging for someone, anyone, to help. Under the evening sky, Mina's desperate appeal echoed, asking someone to rescue her. Back at the inn, Irena informed the group that the culprit behind Mina's parents' murder was still at large. Alba remained silent, his face heavy with concern. He reflected on Mina's role as a minor side role. Her circumstances shouldn't impact his destiny, but uncertainty stayed. Sitting together, the group solemnly hoped they could offer her support in some way. One girl softly spoke, reminding them that grief was too painful to bear alone and no one should have to endure it in silence. The group thought on Sharia's steady expression, shaped by seasons of watching loss. Her words carried quiet strength. Alba made a decision. Regardless of his future or omens, he would help Mina as a friend. Not for the story. With unwavering resolve, Alba sat upright. He promised himself he would become someone Mina could rely on. Alba started his morning with a loud yawn, clearly unconcerned about his surroundings. Despite being in class, Alba drifted into his own realm, earning a steady magical alert from the teacher. The spell hit him cleanly, snapping him back to reality. A month passed since the last field training. It was now June, and their institute existence kept quiet. The academy continued a year-long seasonal rules, shifting from spring to winter in a structured cycle. Over 3 years, students aged 16 to 18 honed their skills, freely choosing events to level up through study and training. Many paths awaited students of the academy: adventurers, scholars, merchants, or heroes uncovering ancient secrets. New heroines arrived, cheerful and charismatic. Alba watched them from a distance, knowing their roles were key to the story's progression. Despite their presence, Alba had no intention of pursuing any of the game's common endings. He remained firmly detached. He understood his fate. No whatever, what path continued, he would eventually become the enemy in the hero's journey. Alba remembered how the story forever ended with the enemy falling after threatening the heroine. He stood silently, rejecting that destiny. Yuri suddenly called out to Alba, surprising him as he stood idly in the hallway. With the heroines watching, Yuri's casually approached, asking why Alba was loitering around instead of engaging in activities like the others. The girls praised Yuri's, highlighting his top performance in the combat test. Alba observed in silence, expression unreadable, playfully joked about their weaknesses while admiring Yuri's. Alba remained distant, separate from their cheerful circle. Alba smiled faintly, then turned away. He excused himself with a careless remark, hiding his unease as he walked off alone. As Alba walked away, the group speculated if they had upset him. With too much praise for Yuri's, hearing whispers of jealousy, Alba paused. The thought left him puzzled. Had he really been envious? Ileana dismissed the idea with a sharp remark, calling jealousy childish. Though her tone suggested something deeper, curious, Sharia turned to her friend and quietly asked if Alba's feelings might be more complicated than they assumed. Far from their conversation, Alba reminded personally of his goal to live a days that would never become the enemy's way, To escape entanglement with central characters, Alba reappeared to his old routine, napping under trees and keeping to alone. Unexpectedly, Mina appeared. She greeted him softly, and Alba replied with a rare, gentle smile. Though a minor person in this land, Mina extended recognition. She invited him to eat lunch together without hesitation. They shared a meal under the sun, laughing easily. Her presence felt distant from destruction or fate. With Mina, Alba could speak freely, unburdened by roles or expectations. That simplicity brought him a feeling of quiet he rarely reached elsewhere. Sitting under the trees, Alba softly acknowledged what he had heard about Mina's relatives, offering calm support in return. Her eyes softened with gratitude as she thanked him. That simple exchange brought a warmth they both understood. Mina admitted she always felt more cheerful after speaking with him, her smile radiant and sincere. Suddenly, Sharia appeared, recognizing both of them. She approached with an enthusiastic greeting without hesitation. She invited Mina to join them after class. Alba observed curiously as Mina stared in shock at the unexpected offer. With a shining grin, Sharia abruptly suggested they all throw a party together. Her energy filled the air. Both Alba and Mina blinked in confusion, unsure what the occasion could be. A burst of confetti revealed the surprise. Everyone had gathered to celebrate Alba's birthday, shouting their cheerful congratulations. Caught off guard, Alba gave an awkward laugh. The event was overwhelming, but strangely heartwarming. As he looked back, Alba recalled entering his birth date during the game's setup. That simple input had triggered this event in the world's script. One by one, the girls offered heartfelt birthday wishes. For Alba, this was unfamiliar territory, warmth from people who genuinely cared. They showed that the 6th of June marked his birthday, a fact even he had overlooked since reincarnating into this realm. Jokes flew around, teasing him for sulking earlier when no one had celebrated. He protested, flustered but clearly touched. Despite the short notice, everyone had worked together to make the party happen. Even Elena, while acting cold, had known all along. Introductions continued as Mina politely thanked them for the invitation. The others welcomed her warmly, blending two circles into one. Elena gave gentle words to Mina, reassuring her that the Luciar family would forever lend support. Mina nodded, touched by the warmth. Sharia then stepped forward, formally reintroducing herself. The two girls exchanged polite greetings, closing the distance between their social circles. From the sidelines, Alba observed the friendly exchange, silently noticing how easily his realm had become packed with these main characters despite his efforts. Suddenly, Sharia called out to him with a cheerful voice, saying everything was ready. Alba turned, surprised. At the center stood a cake glowing with candles. Surrounding it were his friends, smiling, as they celebrated his 16th birthday with genuine joy. As the candles appeared, Alba taken a hope, for formerly, he let alone hope that simple life like this could continue. Laughter erupted as Sharia playfully smashed the cake into his face, leaving everyone including Alba laughing. Through the laughter, Alba smiled gently. In that moment, he wished only to keep living peacefully without conflict or fate hanging overhead. As the gathering ended, the group said their goodbyes. Yuri's, Elena, and Sharia returned to the academy dorms. Mina prepared to leave as well, but Alba insisted on walking her home after all. He said it was the least he could do. Quietly insisted that Alba was kind to everyone, denying she had any special reason to be jealous. Yet her flustered tone said otherwise. As they stood outside, Alba suddenly turned to Sharia and told her they were leaving. Mina was left momentarily confused. He explained with a grin that he couldn't let her walk home alone. He was her self-declared bodyguard now. During their walk, they learned Mina lived under the knight's protection, and Sharia warmly invited her to visit their home anytime. Mina was overwhelmed by their kindness. She tried to speak, her core pounding, but her remarks found in her throat as emotions stirred within. When they reached her gate, Mina said goodbye with a faint, hesitant smile. Whatever she'd hoped to answer stayed unspoken. As she waved from the entrance, Sharia commented that it looked like Mina had tried to say something. He reassured her, saying Mina would talk when she was ready because they were friends. Sharia softly echoed the sentiment. Darkness settled over the streets. To light their way, Alba cast a simple illumination spell, lighting up the path with a bright glow. Suddenly, a presence stirred nearby. Both froze as Alba raised his words, demanding. The quiet darkness had taken a sharp turn. Alba's expression turned sharp. His senses were on full alert. Sharia called his name, startled by the sudden shift in his demeanor. He scanned the area, certain they were being watched, but whoever it was had vanished. Sharia looked around, seeing no one. From a rooftop, a shadowed figure clicked their tongue in frustration. irritated that Alba had sensed their presence so quickly. The mysterious observer noted Alba's unusual awareness, remarking that even a mere student could detect the effects of their cloaking spell. With a cruel grin, the hooded person muttered that soon, the magical energy needed to transform the maiden would be complete. From a remote rooftop, the hooded person whispered that the moment for god-slaying was nearly upon them. Oblivious of the danger, Alba and his friends continued their lives at the school, their life still packed with calm for now. Kriana Academy prepares for one of its most important events of the year, the sports festival. Celia Margaret, representative of the Unicorn Group, raises her fist and leads the students in an oath to fight fair and with heart. Cheers erupt across the grounds as the festival officially begins. The Academy's staff look on with anticipation, hoping to see how the students in the Holy Bird, Fenrir, and Unicorn groups have grown. A screen explains the rules. Students compete with the group they chose at the start of the term, and a victory raises the affection of the heroine tied to that group. Elena and Celia steady themselves, ready to give their all. Elsewhere, Alba, a member of the Unicorn group, quietly declares that he has no intention of winning. Standing out could put him closer to a death flag, and that is the one thing he refuses to risk. Celia and Elena hype each other up, vowing to bring total victory to House Persia and make the most of their first sports festival together. Alba watches them from a distance, sweating slightly at how seriously they are taking it. The two girls scold Alba for holding back, telling him to show some spirit like everyone else. He responds half-heartedly, clearly more interested in staying invisible than competing. The Fenrir group rallies behind Yuri's and Alice, declaring that victory belongs to them and they refuse to lose to anyone. Their energy contrasts sharply with Alba's reluctance just moments earlier. Yuri approaches Alba, playfully warning him not to expect any mercy. The other students joke about how, technically, the protagonist winning the festival would be the canon route. Mina, representative of the Holy Bird group, steps forward with a calm smile, ready to compete. Mina proposes a fair fight, and both sides agree, acknowledging that everyone is a rival today. Her allies warn each other not to underestimate the Holy Bird group's strong magical power. Mina simply says she wants to make good memories, though her quiet smile carries something unreadable underneath. Lily, another member of the Holy Bird group, introduces herself and remarks that Mina is hiding a surprising amount of magic power. She wonders aloud what kind of magic Mina actually uses. Nearby, Kate Sith, the festival's cat mascot, announces that commentary and play-by-play duties belong to him. Yuri mentions offhandedly that there is even a future storyline where Alba ends up paired with Lily, calling her a mysterious girl. The first event for first years is announced, a foot race with magic strictly banned, testing pure stamina instead. Students cheer on their chosen representatives as Mina, Celia, and Alice prepare to run. The race begins. Alice reveals she grew up chasing Yuri's around the mountains, giving her surprising speed as she takes an early lead. Alba, uninterested in competing, decides to skip the event entirely, insisting that avoiding death flags matters more than winning. Elsewhere, Celia and Kate Sith realize he has vanished and panic, wondering where he went. The next event is announced, a giant rock rolled forward using a class's combined magic power. While the rock battle unfolds, Alba is found casually eating lunch nearby, having skipped out entirely. Celia demands to know where the idiot is hiding, and Lily calmly notes that Al is being just as unpredictable as always. The festival moves into a Shambara battle, a mock sword fight using padded weapons that only numb on impact. Students charge forward together, encouraged to survive with all their might, though one nervously admits she isn't very good with weapons. The chaos of the battle turns into a full-scale free-for, all with students clashing from every direction. One onlooker remarks that two competitors in particular are clearly on a different level from everyone else. Those two are revealed to be Yuri's and Elena, locked in an intense one-on-one clash that draws everyone's attention. The fight is fierce and evenly matched. Elena's technique is refined, but Yuri's compensates with raw talent, and both openly admire each other's strength. Someone remarks that Yuri's is really playing the part of the protagonist today. A voice questions the word original, realizing that fighting evenly with Elena is actually one of the storylines required to raise her affection in the game. The full picture becomes clear. In the original story, the protagonist raises the heroine's affection. The villain Alba steals her away and the protagonist fights to save her, leading to Alba's downfall. Someone insists that this version of Alba is different from the one in the game, but the thought lingers uncomfortably. The scoreboard updates. Fenrir leads with 250 points. Holy Bird follows with 230, and Unicorn trails behind at 200. Celia and Elena rally each other, acknowledging that Unicorn is in last place but insisting a comeback is still possible, especially with the final event worth double points. Alba lies sprawled out, still napping despite the commotion. Oblivious to the chaos he has caused up in the stands, the crowd chants his name, demanding to know why the delinquent still hasn't shown up. Celia fumes, furious that he continues to skip events like nothing happened. The final event for first years is announced. The mixed pair obstacle race boys and girls will switch partners halfway through, combining stamina, magic, and raw power to clear the course. Kate Sith reveals the chosen representatives for each group. For Unicorn, the pair is Al and Celia. Everyone scrambles to find him while Celia stands stunned that she has been paired with the one person who keeps disappearing. The other pairs are revealed as well. Fenrir sends Yuri's and Alice, who confidently agree to take on the challenge together. Holy Bird sends Mash and Lily, with Mash grumbling about the effort, while Lily simply says she will do her best. Kate Sith scolds Alba directly, reminding him he can't keep skipping forever. Startled, Alba is dragged back just as the crowd erupts, demanding to know where he has been hiding all this time. The rules are laid out clearly. The girls will carry the baton first, pushing through obstacles before handing it off to the boys, who will then fight through the remaining course to reach the goal. The track is shown in full, a looping path with one obstacle waiting on the women's side and another on the men's, starting and ending at opposite ends of the field. Kate Sith gives the signal to begin. The race explodes into motion as Lily, Celia, and Alice launch forward. Their teammates cheer them on from the sidelines, each wishing they could do more to help. Ahead of them, obstacles begin to activate, rising from magic circles embedded in the ground. Countless grasping hands made of dark energy surge up from the obstacle, threatening to swallow the runners whole. Lily reacts instantly, casting a spell to summon her own set of magical hands to bind the opposing force before it can trap them. Lily's magic tears a clean path straight through the wall of grasping hands, clearing the way for herself and the others to keep moving without breaking stride. Watching from the sidelines, Yuri's and Al note just how exceptional Lily's control is. Al remarks that most people are naturally skilled with one elemental affinity while weak in its opposite. Yuri's counters that Lily is far beyond simply good. She has no such limitation at all. Lily is revealed to have mastered all four basic elements at once, without any visible struggle, a feat that stuns everyone watching. Someone notes that as the disciple of the sage, this kind of mastery makes complete sense for a heroine of her caliber. Alice takes her turn, transforming herself into a small cat using magic to slip past the grasping hands unnoticed, before darting away safely to the other side. Watching her escape, Al recalls that she is a heroine known for her tricky, unconventional magic and jokes that if she had used this trick during their encounter with the Chimera, she might have avoided capture entirely. Celia calls upon holy light, letting it burst outward and erase the obstacle in front of her completely. Al watches with quiet approval, noting the clear touch of a scientist's blessing in her magic. With the girls' portion cleared, the boys prepare to take over as the baton pass begins. A massive iron golem rises from the ground, towering over the runners as their next obstacle. The boys watching from behind acknowledge just how enormous a wall it presents. Alice makes the baton touch with Yuri's, urging him forward. He wastes no time, closing the distance and delivering a direct kick that sends the golem's massive fist flying backward as if it were nothing. Yuri's tears across the track at incredible speed, easily overtaking the obstacle. He silently activates a hidden ability, boosting his physical performance far beyond normal limits. As he pushes ahead of the pack, Lily explains the mechanics behind his sudden burst of strength, describing how he draws energy from an alternate dimension and channels it directly into his body to enhance his physical output. She notes that despite how dangerous and unstable such magic can be if mishandled, he activates it with unsettling ease, calling him a true master of the technique. Eurus uses the same enhanced strength to shatter straight through the iron golem's defenses, proving that his earlier attack was no fluke. The golem staggers, unable to withstand the force behind his leap. Elsewhere on the field, Celia finally catches up to Al, apologizing breathlessly for making him wait. He stands quietly, only mildly annoyed by the delay. Elena storms toward Al, furious and threatening to expose the truth of who he really is in front of everyone if he doesn't take the race seriously. Panicked, Al realizes she means his identity as Alba the villain, and scrambles into gear, sprinting off the starting line like a bolt of lightning the moment the race resumes. The iron golem unleashes a massive burst of energy straight ahead, but Al powers through it without slowing down, driving forward with everything he has as the shockwave tears apart the space around him. The whole field watches in stunned silence as Al blazes across the final stretch, leaving the obstacle behind him in ruins. Celia, Elena, Lily, and Alice all react with wide eyes, none of them expecting him to close the gap so fast. Al crosses the finish line first, sealing Unicorn's victory. Yuri's watches him with quiet respect, admitting under his breath that Al has proven himself a worthy rival. Al, catching his breath, mutters that he should have picked up the pace much sooner. Sitting on the ground afterward, Al grumbles in frustration, unable to believe he actually won. Despite trying so hard to stay out of the spotlight, Celia and Elena embrace each other, laughing with pure joy as the announcement comes in. Kate Sith declares the results. The group that conquered the first-year division is the Unicorn group. Reflecting on the day, Lily admits that getting to see so much interesting magic made the festival enjoyable. Maybe. Alice and Mina agree, glad they didn't lose and already looking ahead to next year. Celia thinks quietly to herself that they made some wonderful memories together. None of them realize yet that the sports festival was only a flag setting up the next major event to come. In a shadowed hall far from the academy, a masked figure addresses someone called Yoru-sama, informing them that the festival has ended. Yoru corrects them coldly, insisting the real festival is only just beginning. The figure agrees, revealing that everything is being set in motion for the sake of their organization's long, cherished ambition, one they call Ragnarok. Surrounded by two grinning, mask-like figures looming in the shadows, a woman steps forward with a sharp smile, introducing the name of what is coming next, the God Killing. The chapter ends there, marked to be continued. The sports festival had finally come to a close, and the mood among the students settled into quiet exhaustion. Al stretched his arms and admitted he was worn out, only for Elena to remind him that he had skipped half the events himself. She teased that no matter how much he seemed to change, moments like this proved the delinquent in him never really left. Al laughed it off, insisting that all that mattered was their side had won. As the two walked together, Elena wondered aloud where Celia had gone. Al explained that Mina had asked to speak with her privately and that Celia was still inside the girls' locker room. Elena found the whole situation curious, unable to guess what kind of conversation would keep Celia so long. Inside the locker room, Celia approached Mina directly, asking what exactly she wanted to discuss. The empty rows of lockers around them made the space feel unusually still, as if the moment carried more weight than an ordinary chat between friends. Mina struggled to find her words at first, her hesitation obvious. Celia guessed lightly that it might be love advice, trying to ease the tension. But Mina's expression stayed serious as she finally spoke Celia's name with unusual formality, catching her off guard. Mina asked a question that felt far heavier than expected, whether Celia could sacrifice one precious thing in order to save something else she cared about. Celia's face tightened, the playful atmosphere gone, replaced by something closer to unease. Neither girl spoke for a moment. The silence stretched between the lockers as Mina continued, reflecting on how people often wonder what choice is right, yet find themselves forced to give something up whenever they try to protect what matters most. Mina went on, describing humans as beings with only 2 hands and 2 legs, limited vessels unable to hold everything at once. No matter how much someone wished to keep, their capacity would always fall short. She continued, saying only a being like God could grasp everything without loss. Mortals, by contrast, were forever bound to choose, to select one thing while discarding another, a truth she seemed to carry with quiet sorrow. Her words grew more pointed. What would someone choose? Where would they go? What would they hold on to when the moment came? Even knowing sacrifice was inevitable, people still agonized over the decision, suffering long before the choice was made. Despite the heaviness of her words, Mina insisted that such choices were precisely what made people human. They were precious, something worth taking pride in, or so she wanted to believe, even as doubt lingered beneath her voice. Celia studied her for a moment before answering plainly that she would respect whatever decision Mina made if she were struggling with something painful. Mina's expression softened into a small, grateful smile as she told Celia to choose whatever path she wished. No matter what it was, tears welled in Mina's eyes as she thanked Celia quietly. Her voice trembled with an emotion that went beyond simple gratitude, as though Celia's answer confirmed something she had hoped and feared to hear between tears. Mina called Celia a true saintess before apologizing, the words slipping out with sudden urgency. Celia could only blink in confusion, unsure what exactly she was being thanked and apologized for. Without warning, a dark presence loomed behind Celia, the air around them shifting violently before she could react. A massive figure closed in, its grinning face filling the shadows as it declared its ambush a success. Mina whispered another apology as the intruder seized her, dragging her back while Celia turned in shock, demanding to know who the attacker was. The peaceful conversation only moments earlier had collapsed into chaos. Through tears, Mina revealed the truth behind her earlier words. Her father and mother had both been killed, and the fear of losing anyone else had shaped everything she just said. Her apology was not for the conversation itself, but for what she now had no choice but to do. The masked man declared that he was taking the scientists with him to an organization known only as Ragnarok. As he seized Celia, Mina's voice cracked as she screamed her name, unable to stop what was unfolding before her. Elsewhere, unaware of the unfolding crisis, Al crossed paths with Yuri's and Alice, who greeted him with casual familiarity. Yuri's asked if he was still lingering around, prompting a light exchange between old acquaintances enjoying the calm after the festival. The calm shattered when Al suddenly felt a massive surge of magic ripple through the air. Alarmed, he asked what it could be. Alice explained they were waiting for Celia, who was taking longer than expected, which was why Elena had gone ahead to find her. Concern quickly replaced their earlier lightheartedness as the atmosphere shifted. Moments later, a monstrous creature tore through the city, its massive form crashing into the streets with devastating force. The peaceful day had turned in an instant, leaving everyone to face a threat far greater than anything the sports festival had prepared them for. Yuri's recalled with a grin that the creature before them had killed him more times than he could count, recognizing it instantly as the legendary magic beast from the game's endgame. Alice and the others turned toward it in disbelief, stunned that something so massive had appeared, momentarily mistaking its form for an ordinary elephant before realizing the truth. The beast revealed itself fully, its towering horns and thick hide unmistakable. This was the behemoth, a creature whose name alone carried the weight of every nightmare from the game's final stretch. Yuri confirmed there was no mistaking it, though he noted something was off, calling it an imitation rather than the real thing. Elsewhere, the headmaster shouted for everyone to evacuate the students immediately, his expression darkening as he realized the timing was no coincidence. A creature appearing out of nowhere like this, right as the festival ended, could not have been random chance. Panic spread through the crowd as students scattered, screaming that a monster had appeared, urging each other to run as chaos swallowed the school grounds. Alice studied the beast with narrowed eyes, explaining that something like this, an imitation of a magic beast, was far beyond what any ordinary human could produce. Her voice turned cold as she realized the implication. They had been targeting the students all along. Yuri's muttered that it felt just like the field trip incident, the memory clearly unwelcome. Before they could process the threat further, someone shouted a warning as a horde of goblins surged forward alongside the beast, their snarling faces closing in from every direction. Amid the commotion, Elena realized with horror that Celia was still inside the school building. Al's eyes widened as the danger became clear. The monsters were heading straight for the building, and there were still students trapped inside. The behemoth let out a low, mocking sound as it prepared to strike. Someone shouted for Al to move, urging him to get out of the way as the beast's attack tore through the ground with tremendous force, while a cold voice in the distance simply told someone to go make a scene. Inside, one of the black-cloaked figures observed the destruction with satisfaction, remarking that the girl's power had certainly caused a commotion. Her companion agreed that everything was proceeding exactly as Yoru had planned. Celia demanded they let her go, but the hooded man carrying her only continued forward, stating flatly that he was taking the girl back first, exactly as planned. His calm was suddenly broken by a burst of light and force as someone struck at him. Elena stood ready with her blade drawn, ordering one of the enemies, Dodora, to fall back while she confronted the man directly. Startled by the sudden appearance of a rock-hard arm blocking her strike, she demanded to know who these people were. The man himself seemed thrown off, muttering that this wasn't part of the plan. Grinning, the hooded man raised his hand mockingly and bid a casual farewell, sinking into the ground and vanishing along with Celia in his grasp. Elena rushed forward, shouting for Celia to wait, stunned to see the man had slipped straight into the earth using some form of magic she hadn't expected from an enemy like him. In the aftermath, another cloaked figure stepped forward from the shadows, declaring herself Elena's new opponent as the fight shifted directly to her. The two clashed immediately, blades and magic colliding in a burst of sparks and light, as neither side backed down. The cloaked woman snarled that this fight didn't concern Elena and told her to stand down. Elena refused outright, declaring on the name of House Persia that she would never abandon a friend, insisting that the enemy had no right to call her involvement an insult. The woman sneered, calling it a far greater sin to abandon a friend just to survive, before turning the question back on Elena, asking if she had a death wish for standing her ground. Elena responded with a defensive technique from her family's swordsmanship, its form flowing and precise as she read her opponent's movements, redirecting each strike with controlled parries. Her counterattack activated a technique known as turning bloom, her blade twisting through the air with practiced elegance as she turned the momentum of the fight in her favor. The enemy recognized the skill for what it was, the blade of a prodigy. The flower of Persia said to surpass even the royal knights. Caught off guard by the counter that used her own force against her, she could only react in stunned disbelief as Elena's technique struck true. Mina lowered her weapon abruptly, her expression unreadable as she pulled back from the strike she had every chance to land. Elena stared at her, breathing hard, demanding to know why she had stopped mid-attack. Mina only echoed the question back to herself, as if she didn't fully understand her own hesitation either. Elena pressed further, reminding her sharply that she had already made herself clear. She would not tolerate being insulted. She pointed out that Mina could have easily run her through in that moment. Yet she hadn't. Elena's resolve stayed firm as she declared plainly that she did not abandon her friends, no matter the circumstances or the danger standing in front of her. Something in Mina's frozen posture caught Elena's attention. The black hair, the horns curling from her head, the tail swaying behind her, none of it matched the girl she once knew. Yet Elena said she recognized her all the same, insisting she may look different, but her identity couldn't be hidden. Mina flinched, asking in a shaking voice what Elena meant. Though the accusation had already struck its mark, tears welled in Mina's eyes as she finally said the name aloud. Admitting it was her, Mina standing before Elena despite everything that had changed about her appearance. She explained brokenly that it was because Elena was her friend that she couldn't bring herself to finish the fight. Elena's expression softened only slightly as she asked what exactly was happening, demanding answers. Mina managed to say it was all right, insisting weakly that she was on Elena's side despite everything. Before the conversation could continue, a sudden blow struck Elena from behind, her guard having slipped in the moment of distraction. She realized too late that another enemy had been lying in wait the entire time. The attacker, a masked man in a dark hood, taunted her for the opening she'd given him, mocking her carelessness with a sly remark before declaring he'd come to collect her. Nearby, another hooded figure sneered at Mina to stop resisting, casually suggesting they either take her along or simply have some fun with her captive companion first. Grabbing Elena roughly by the hair and calling her a real beauty, Mina's face twisted with rage and grief as she snapped that the only reason she had ever cooperated with the organization called Ragnarok was to help them kidnap the scientists. Nothing more. The men mocked her further, reminding her coldly that they still held her little sister's life in their hands, warning her not to grow arrogant just because she was supposedly Yori's favorite. One added dismissively that babysitting the princess had become a tiresome chore, his tone dripping with contempt as he threatened to kill Elena right where she stood. Using an invisibility technique, the group prepared to disappear entirely, with one of the men explaining that they would leave while Yoru served as the decoy to cover their escape. Mina could only whisper apologies over and over, her voice breaking under the weight of what she'd been forced into. Back with her friends, memories flashed of everyone she cared about, calling them her precious people. Meanwhile, Al pushed himself forward with everything he had, gasping for breath as he desperately apologized under his breath, finally reaching Elena's side and crying out her name as he found her collapsed on the ground. Yoru stood at the center of the destruction, laughing as goblins and imitation beasts tore through the academy grounds around her, commanding her monsters to run wild and tear the place apart without restraint. Amid the rampage, Professor Gunshow moved through the horde with practiced ease, cutting down a charging behemoth's trunk in a single decisive strike. Students watching from a distance marveled that such strength was exactly what they expected from their headmaster. Yoru greeted him with mock familiarity, calling him the strongest magic swordsman the academy had ever produced. Gunshow responded coldly, noting it had been a long time since they'd last met. He demanded to know why she was attacking her own alma mater, reminding her she had graduated at the top of her class. Yoru's silhouette rose against the sky as she declared this assault was meant to celebrate the end of the three great powers that ruled the world, brushing off his words about being her brilliant former student. Gunshow's expression darkened further as he realized the scope of her ambition, asking if she intended to target the church and the royal palace as well. Not just the academy. Yoru only smiled, remarking idly on the time before vanishing from his reach entirely, leaving him grasping at nothing as she called him her beloved teacher on her way out. Alone with the wreckage, Gunshow reflected bitterly that a country girl graduating as valedictorian had always seemed too good to be true. As the illusion magic dispersed and the imitation monsters faded away, he recalled the promise she once made to use her magic for the happiness of others, and could only ask quietly why she had betrayed everything she once believed in. Elena woke with a start, disoriented and unsure of her surroundings. Al explained gently that she was in the infirmary and asked if she was all right. Elena struggled to piece together what had happened, then remembered with horror that Celia had been kidnapped, prompting a wave of alarm as she asked where Celia and Mina had gone. Overcome with guilt, Al apologized to Celia in his mind, blaming himself for failing to protect her from every threat. He clenched his fists, vowing not to forgive whoever was responsible, while Elena added that the man who took her hadn't acted alone. Elena described the attacker in detail, a massive man cloaked in black with skin like solid rock, who had dragged Celia into the ground and disappeared with her. Then she revealed the harder truth. It had been Mina who attacked her. Al's shock was immediate, and Elena admitted uncertainly that whatever Mina had become, she wasn't human anymore, leaving Al desperate to understand what she meant. Elena described what she'd witnessed, a figure that resembled a magic beast more than a person, horned and clawed, likely what people called a heretic. She explained further that according to the Kriana Church, such beings were branded blasphemers, born from a forbidden union between human and beast. Al refused to accept it outright, insisting Mina couldn't be so different from the friend they knew. Though Elena admitted she wasn't certain, only that the Mina she saw looked nothing like herself. Still, Al held on to his conviction. No matter what she looked like now, she was still their friend, and there had to be a reason behind what she'd done. Elena's gaze softened as memories of their time together surfaced, and she agreed quietly that he was right. Piecing things together, Al reasoned that if heretics were outcasts gathered together, then the giant who had taken Celia might belong to the same group as Mina, some kind of organized force operating in the shadows. Elsewhere, in a private thought, the situation echoed something eerily familiar, a cult kidnapping the scientist with intent to assassinate her, only for the protagonist's quick thinking to save her and deepen their bond. One of the pivotal heroine events straight out of the game. That role was supposed to belong to someone else entirely. The realization struck hard. That event only occurred in the story because the villain, Alba, conspired with the cult out of spite toward the heroine. But this time, Alba insisted he had nothing to do with any of it. The confusion deepened. If Mina was merely a background character with no connection to the main plot, why had she been the one drawn into this scheme, seemingly left to fill a void that fate never intended for her? Back in the infirmary, a voice startled everyone present. Al immediately asked Elena if they had any leads on where Celia had been taken, and she admitted apologetically that she didn't know, having been caught off guard and knocked unconscious before she could see more. When Al confirmed no one else should be in the room, a new voice interrupted. Riley noting that peeping was a rather terrible hobby. The voice belonged to Lily, who emerged apologizing for missing her chance to speak up sooner, revealing she had heard everything. Elena was startled to learn Lily had been present and had even witnessed the battle firsthand. Al explained that Lily belonged to the Phoenix group and possessed the rare ability to use invisibility magic, a skill so ancient that virtually no known users remained. Tension flared as more classmates gathered, one of them furious that Celia had been taken and demanding to know why Lily hadn't intervened to help. Lily replied calmly that she couldn't act without knowing for certain which side was truly in the right. When accused of dishonoring the House of Persia's name, Elena defended her, saying Lily simply moved at her own pace before turning the conversation back to what mattered. Lily confirmed she had a clue, stating Celia should still be located somewhere within the girls' locker room. Al held Elena close as she wept against him, gently resting a hand on her head. With quiet determination in his eyes, he made her a solemn promise he would save both Celia and Mina, no matter what it took. Elena thanked him softly through her tears, her voice trembling with exhaustion and relief. He told her to rest and wait for their return, praising the effort she had already given in the battle that had left her wounded. Lily reported what she had uncovered. When the imitation magic beasts had appeared, she traced their source of power and witnessed Mina's transformation, along with the abduction of the scientist Celia by a hooded giant. Since Elena's fall in battle, Lily had focused entirely on assessing the situation to determine the truth of what happened. Al listened closely, then asked what clue she had found. Lily explained her reasoning. The earth magic used by the giant who took Celia required an enormous amount of power to burrow underground, meaning a trace of his magical signature had to remain. Al questioned whether tracking such a faint fragment was even possible for an ordinary student. Lily's expression sharpened as she sensed a faint trace of magic lingering in the air. All admired her resolve, remarking that as the disciple of the sage and the most skilled magic user among the heroines, she was more than capable. Lily asked him to lend her his strength, declaring she would do whatever it took to save her precious friends. All reflected silently. Logically, letting Celia disappear would keep him further from his own death flag. Yet he refused to accept that outcome. He chose to follow his heart instead of logic. Lily stepped forward and declared she was on his side, insisting that following their hearts was the right thing to do. No matter the risk, beyond the academy walls near the distant castle and jagged mountains, someone skidded to a stop in the wilderness. Breathing hard, a young man knelt on the rocky ground, gasping for air after a long pursuit. Alice called out to Yuri's, having chased him down using her falcon's wings after he suddenly bolted from the academy. Yuri's apologized, explaining he had found something only for Alice to ask, confused, who exactly he meant. Yuri's pieced together the truth. He recalled the headmaster speaking to someone while facing down a rampaging behemoth, and once the magic beast vanished, he witnessed that same figure leap from the behemoth's back and fly away. Alice realized he had tracked down the culprit behind the academy's attack, and Yuri's confirmed he had been chasing the figure ever since. Despite his effort, Yuri's admitted defeat even using his overboost. The enemy had completely outrun him. Alice was stunned, noting he was faster than the swiftest horse. A shadowy, ragged silhouette loomed in their thoughts, a reminder that whoever attacked the academy was no ordinary opponent. As night fell, Alice asked whether they should turn back. Fresh footprints on the ground caught their attention, clearly belonging to the culprit. Alice volunteered to handle it, invoking her anima, change ability, and transforming into a sharp-eyed, sharp-nosed dog to track the scent, promising it would lead them straight to their target. Yuri's praised her effort as they pressed onward through the rocky terrain and into the night beneath a pale moon. Elsewhere, Lily confirmed to Al that she could still sense the magic traces guiding them. Noting they had already come a considerable distance, Al carried Lily on his back, urging her to hold on tight as they moved swiftly through the dark. She agreed cheerfully, clinging to him as they raced forward. Beneath the full moon, an ancient crumbling structure rose from the shadowed mountains, its long staircase leading toward a fortress swallowed by ruin. Al called out Celia's name, silently vowing to wait no longer. Inside, robed figures chanted in fervor, hailing the arrival of someone called Ragnarok as skeletal magic surged around a throne. They celebrated the saintess's capture, proclaiming the coming of the god-killing ritual under the name of Lord Yoru. Elsewhere, Celia lay unconscious on cold stone, and a voice within her swore desperately that she would be saved. As the ritual pressed forward, she stirred weakly, murmuring Al's name before the chapter closed on the promise of what was still to come. Celia stirs awake on cold stone floor, confused about her surroundings. She recognizes the barred window and realizes she is locked inside a prison cell. Memory returns to her slowly, and she recalls being ambushed and abducted by Mina and the others who serve Ragnarok. A voice greets her from beyond the bars. A woman with half-white, half-black hair introduces herself as Yoru, leader of the organization called Ragnarok, the group responsible for kidnapping Celia. She addresses Celia only as Saintess. Celia demands to know why she was taken and what Yoru intends to do with her. Yoru answers simply that they are planning a festival, leaving Celia bewildered by the strange response. Celia presses further, confused about what kind of festival Yoru could mean. Yoru clarifies with a wide grin that Celia herself is the guest of honor for this event. Yoru reveals Ragnarok's true purpose. They intend to slaughter the being the Kriana Church worships as the goddess of fate. Their plan is nothing less than the killing of a god itself, and Celia reacts in shock at the scale of what Yoru is describing. Yoru begins to explain her hatred toward the goddess, describing her as a distant figure who never reveals her face and merely watches the world from afar despite receiving endless prayers and worship from mortals. She continues, pointing out the goddess's indifference. While the greedy fight wars and gorge themselves on pleasure without consequence, the weak who starve or suffer from disease receive no help or mercy from her at all. Yoru bluntly calls the goddess a discriminatory being, asking Celia directly whether she agrees with that harsh judgment. Celia protests weakly from behind the bars, insisting that the goddess does not discriminate, and that she is a loving mother who grants destiny to the lost and watches over them. Yoru mocks her response, reminding Celia that she is the only woman in the entire world chosen to receive the goddess's favor, blessed with the so-called holy power. Yoru finds it almost funny that Celia, of all people, would defend her so earnestly. Leaning closer to the bars, Yoru delivers her real point. She tells Celia that being the sole recipient of that divine blessing makes her the very embodiment of the goddess's discrimination. Yoru suddenly reaches through the bars and grabs Celia by the collar, yanking her forward with violent force. Celia cries out in shock as Yoru's expression twists into something cold and merciless. Yoru declares her intent plainly. Since the goddess refuses to show herself, Yoru will kill her proxy instead, meaning Celia, as a stand-in for the god she cannot reach. Yoru forces Celia down against the floor, pinning her while Celia coughs and struggles beneath the pressure. Yoru tells her to spend her remaining time cursing the goddess who handed her this fate, adding that her execution will be held as a public spectacle, fitting for a festival. Celia's thoughts drift into memory. She recalls once thanking the goddess of fate sarcastically for the destiny bestowed upon her since birth, joking that she was only kidding, though she also reflects that the church would likely keep praying regardless of how cruel that fate turned out to be. The memory deepens into her childhood. Her father tells young Celia that her fate comes bundled with grueling trials, yet she has also been blessed with the goddess's protection, the holy power. He instructs her not to let that fate break her, urging her to use her power for the world and for the people. Young Celia agrees enthusiastically, even as knights clash in war behind them, some crying out to protect the scientist while enemies scream to capture her instead. More scattered images from her past appear, showing the weight of her position across the years. She reflects that the scientist is destined to live alongside harsh trials forever, an unbroken cycle stretching from childhood into adulthood. Another voice enters her memory, promising her that if the fate she was given makes her cry, she should simply run away, and if she has nowhere left to run, that person will be her refuge instead. Celia's inner thought interrupts the memory, admitting that she had completely forgotten this promise until now. The memory sharpens into clarity. A cheerful young man stands beside her, and Celia recalls that it was because he stayed by her side that she learned it was okay to fight back against a destiny she hated. She admits she is grateful for the fate she was given, but the sentence trails off, unfinished as her feelings shift into resolve. Back in the present, Celia's eyes snap open with sudden determination. She declares to Yoru that she rejects that kind of destiny entirely and absolutely refuses to be killed, her voice firm despite still being restrained beneath her captor's grip. The despair that gripped her moments earlier is replaced by defiance, setting the stage for what comes next. Celia mentions that they could make the goddess taste the loss instead. Yoru dismisses the idea that killing her will change anything, insisting the goddess won't die that way, but Yoru simply replies that it is too bad, since she is killing Celia anyway and telling her to offer her life up to the goddess. Yoru's expression twists into something colder, revealing her true motive. She isn't just after the goddess through Celia's death, she wants to inflict the pain of losing a precious human, aiming the cruelty directly at whoever cherishes Celia most. She adds that it will also be a perfect way to wipe the smug look off the faces of the bigoted people ruling the world. Laughing as she says it, tears fall silently from Celia as she kneels, defeated and powerless against Yoru's blade raised behind the bars. In this moment of despair, she quietly whispers a name into the dark, calling out for Alba. The scene shifts outside the hideout where Alba stands with Lily on a ridge overlooking the ruins. He suddenly stops before rushing through the front entrance, recalling that storming the main gate of this particular building is a guaranteed way to get wrecked, remembering dozens of traps and ambush attacks that would be waiting for anyone foolish enough to charge. Lily questions how Alba could possibly know something so specific. In his mind, he explains that this knowledge comes from having played through this exact scenario in the game, admitting he had to look up a walkthrough after getting so many game overs at this very spot. Trying to sound confident, he tells Lily there is a back door on the other side of the building. Alba silently reassures himself with certainty, thinking that Celia will survive no matter what, since this whole event is simply a clearable stage in the game called Rescue, the Scientist. In a flashback, Celia had asked Alba to save Mina as well, worried for the girl who had betrayed her. Alba agrees without hesitation, promising he'll rescue her too. Lily, listening quietly nearby, comments afterward that this entire unfolding crisis feels irregular, unlike anything that existed in the original game's story. She realizes the deviation traces back to one specific factor, Mina, whose actions apparently pushed events outside the boundaries of what the game once dictated. Back in the present, Alba tells Lily plainly that he already explained his reasoning, admitting she has caught his interest. Lily, standing over him with a playful glint in her eyes, declares she wants to help. Curious to see more of his magic in action, Alba internally grumbles that more hands joining the fight is good in theory, but it also brings him closer to another one of his death flags. Lily, unaware of his inner panic, comments cheerfully that this is exactly the kind of pattern that raises her affection toward him. Determined, Alba lifts Lily onto his back as they prepare to move, declaring aloud that this whole mission is to save Celia and everyone else caught up in this scheme. Lily responds eagerly, and the two of them launch forward together into the night, racing toward the ruins ahead. Elsewhere, Yuri's and his companion Alice approach the same ruined temple from a different direction. Yuri's asks if this is truly the place, and Alice confirms it, explaining that the scent trail she picked up is leading straight toward the entrance of the structure. Yuri's hesitates before moving further, deciding they don't yet know how many enemies could be lurking inside. He suggests it would be wiser to return to the academy first and report the location of the hideout rather than risk storming in blind before they can retreat. However, Alice suddenly tells him to hide, warning that she hears footsteps approaching. Two cloaked cult members walk nearby, complaining to each other that nobody would ever come all the way out to a place this remote, telling their partner to stop being so paranoid. The other snaps back, insisting they should take the watch seriously. Instead of getting careless, the cultists continue their conversation, remarking that midnight has finally arrived, calling it the hour of the goddess and the festival they have been anxiously waiting for. One admits that being this close to their long-planned goal has him on edge. Hidden nearby, Yuri's quietly repeats the word festival to himself, uneasy about what it could mean. The cultists boast to each other that this night, those bigoted people who wronged them will finally be made to regret everything. Alice reacts with alarm, connecting the pieces together and asking in disbelief if the kidnapped scientist they're discussing could really be Celia. The horrifying truth is confirmed as the cultists explain their plan for God-killing, revealing they intend to use the kidnapped scientist as a blood sacrifice to carry it out. Yuri freezes upon hearing this, muttering that the situation has just become far worse than they anticipated. Unable to hold back, Yuri steps forward with his sword drawn, demanding to know if what he just overheard is true. The cultists react with surprise, mocking him as just some cocky little noble kid who wandered into the wrong place, while Yuri presses harder, shouting at them to answer whether they really kidnapped the scientist. One cultist recognizes Yuri's uniform, identifying him as a student from Kriana Academy, dismissing him further as a spoiled noble boy who doesn't belong here. Yuri refuses to back down, demanding again to know whether the scientist is truly being held inside, warning them not to anger him further as he grips his blade tightly, insisting they answer his question. Honestly, the cultists laugh mockingly, confirming that yes, the scientist is indeed being kept inside their hideout, taunting Yuri by pretending to be terrified of him. They gleefully describe their plan to torture her slowly to death, boasting that afterward they will chop her body into pieces and scatter the remains across the capital for everyone to see. Hearing this, something inside Yuri finally snaps. In a burst of controlled fury, he moves with blinding speed, cutting down both cultists before they can react, his blade flashing through the darkness as their bodies are thrown backward by the force of his strikes. Alice watches nearby, quietly noting that Yuri is absolutely furious, his calm exterior completely shattered by what he just heard. Later, in a calmer moment, someone asks Yuri teasingly how it felt meeting his idol, the scientist herself. He admits sheepishly that he was ecstatic, obviously starstruck by the encounter. Alice interrupts with mock offense, snapping that she already apologized for something, insisting that Celia is simply too cute for her own good, while a narrating aside notes dryly that groping the scientist's chest is surely asking for divine punishment. Yuri continues to reflect, admitting that Celia turned out to be an even more wonderful woman than he had ever imagined. Even a brief conversation with her carried such warmth. He says that it felt soothing just being near her. Alice cuts in with sharp commentary, remarking that Celia is special to both of them, and especially to Yuri. Yuri's protests confused how she twisted his words into something completely different, calling her an idiot for jumping to conclusions. Alice smirks behind her mask, teasing him further and asking if he is really saying he wants to grope her chest too. Before the argument can continue, something catches Alice's attention nearby. She calls out to Yuri, telling him to look closely at the faces of the cultists lying defeated on the ground. Yuri freezes as he studies them, realizing they don't look human at all, questioning aloud whether they might actually be magic beasts. Alice clarifies that they were fully capable of communicating like people, ruling out simple beasts. As the two study the twisted, monstrous features, both react in horror, uncertain what they're truly looking at. Yuri blurts out the possibility neither of them wants to say aloud, wondering in shock if these creatures could actually be heretics. He reasons that they fit the description perfectly, since kidnapping the scientist would be considered the ultimate insult against the gods according to church teachings, marking them as blasphemers who defy divine providence and existences that must be punished for their crimes. Determined now more than ever, Yuri rushes forward up the ancient stone steps leading into the ruins, shouting Celia's name into the darkness and promising that he and Alice are coming to save her. Alice follows close behind, cheering him on and confirming they're moving forward together without hesitation. Deep inside the hideout, Yoru notices the growing commotion echoing from the entrance, remarking coldly that it is getting awfully noisy outside. Her subordinates respond eagerly, one agreeing to handle it under her orders while another suggests they politely ask their uninvited guests to leave, sarcasm dripping from the offer. Alba stood before the ruins with Lily beside him, staring up at the ancient fortress hidden in the mountains. He grinned and declared they had finally found it, calling out her name with excitement. Behind them, a hidden entrance sat carved into the rock. Without hesitation, Alba turned to Lily and said it was time to move. Alba promised he would rescue Shiria right away, telling Lily to wait for his signal. As they descended toward the dark passage below, Lily warned him the interior looked pitch black. Alba brushed off her concern, saying he could simply become the light himself, ready to cast his spell without chanting. Lily grabbed his shoulder in alarm, reminding him that channeling magic without an incantation was dangerous, since it could let the phenomenon consume his body directly. Before she could finish her warning, a violent surge of light and wind erupted around them, sweeping both of them off the ground in a blinding flash. The explosion cleared, revealing a scorched crater at the entrance. Alba muttered a short question as he studied the destruction he had caused. Nearby, hidden figures spotted the pair and recognized the lightning magic, realizing that the boy accompanying Sharia's ally had unusual power. Alba pressed forward with Lily right behind him. A cloaked figure crouched amid falling debris, sneering as he asked if they had come to take the saint back. His body flickered oddly, marked by a strange, colorless camouflage technique. Alba demanded to know where Shiria was being held, his voice sharp with urgency as Lily stood close behind him. The hooded man taunted them, calling Alba foolish and laughing. While claiming the trap ahead belonged to their own allies, Alba shot back, confused, asking what exactly he meant. The stranger's claws twitched with anticipation as he refused to give a straight answer, savoring their confusion. The figure's arm suddenly transformed into a monstrous claw as he roared that all intruders would be slaughtered. Alba immediately recognized the beast-like limb, connecting it to a warning Irena had once given him. The creature snarled that he was no heretic, contradicting the accusation before anyone could speak it aloud. Deeper in the fortress, more masked attackers ambushed a separate corridor, screaming that intruders had to be killed. Yuri's met the assault head-on, swinging his blade through the barrage of knives and claws, cutting down the assailants one after another as sparks and debris filled the narrow stone hallway. Amid the fallen bodies, Alice studied the scene through her glasses, murmuring that Yuri's had encountered the same enemies she feared. Yuri's urged her to hurry so they could find Shiria before it was too late. Alice agreed grimly, calling these enemies heretics as she moved to follow him deeper inside. Without warning, a massive stone fist burst from underground and struck Yuri's, sending him flying. Alice's eyes widened as she realized the attack had come directly from beneath the floor. A shadowy figure declared that intruders would be eliminated, forcing Yuri's to brace himself and draw his sword again. The stone giant loomed over them, shouting that they were heretics. Yuri's and Alice both denied the accusation firmly, insisting they had nothing to do with whatever the creature believed. The monster's face twisted with fury, refusing to listen as it prepared another attack against the two intruders. The giant lashed out with jagged stone spikes, forcing Yuri's to leap and dodge through the debris. Catching his breath, he asked Alice if her magic could help locate Shiria instead. Alice admitted she wasn't exactly the captured princess herself, but agreed to help, letting Yuri's take point in the fight. Yuri's called upon Alice's animal transformation spell, and in a flash of light she turned into a large mouse to slip past the enemy unnoticed. The stone creature clenched its fists in frustration, muttering that this wasn't right, while Yuri's thanked Alice for the assist and readied his blade once more. Yuri's demanded to know what made the enemy any different from a common villain, accusing them of attacking the school and kidnapping the saint. The masked brute claimed everything he did was simply following Lord Yoru's words, insisting that the church itself was the true source of the conflict. The creature roared that the Cleriana Church treated people like him as monsters, tormenting and discriminating against them for being different. His voice cracked with resentment as he accused the church of being the true bigots, hiding behind righteousness while persecuting those born unlike everyone else. Yuri's shot back that such reasoning didn't excuse attacking innocents, insisting evil had to be stopped regardless of the excuse. The stone giant roared in defiance, claiming that he and his companions were the true allies of justice, launching another wave of rock spikes toward Yuri's as the fight intensified. The creature repeated that he stood on the side of justice, provoking a sarcastic remark from Alba nearby, who mocked the idea that such an arm could represent anything righteous. The monster snapped back, accusing them of judging his kind purely by appearance, swearing loyalty in the name of his god. The creature explained bitterly that so-called heretics were originally ordinary humans, their transformations triggered by unknown causes, whether disease or curse. Alba and Lily listened in stunned silence, realizing the truth behind the monstrous forms was far more complicated than either of them had expected walking into the ruins. He continued explaining that some were born already changed while others transformed later as they grew into adulthood, since the timing differed for everyone. Flashbacks showed villagers recoiling from a stone-skinned infant, screaming for it to be discarded, branding the newborn a monster before it had done anything wrong. The masked group stood together in the shadows, declaring that everyone gathered under the banner of Ragnarok shared the same fate, their bodies slowly consumed by the transformation while they carried on living. Despite the pain, bound together by suffering the outside world refused to understand or accept. Among the transformed, some eventually lost their minds completely, turning into true monsters incapable of reason. The masked figure explained that not every heretic kept their sanity, warning Alba and Lily that the change did not always end in something merely tragic, but sometimes ended in true horror. He continued, accusing the church of using words like abomination and mixed blood as excuses to discriminate against and eliminate anyone born different, branding them enemies of the world simply for existing, before declaring that this was exactly why they chose to kill in return. He sneered, mocking the idea that the church would ever repent for driving the saint to violence through its own discrimination, laughing about revolution and calling their cause the salvation of every heretic who had ever been persecuted. Alba stood silent, absorbing every word without responding. A narrator's voice explained that within the game, heretics were programmed as enemies of the saint, fated to be discriminated against no matter what they did. But Alba's thoughts pushed back, insisting this wasn't a game anymore, and that he couldn't just dismiss their suffering as scripted despair. Alba declared aloud that Sharia and Mina were his real friends, insisting this world was truly real to him. Now the masked man questioned the word friend, mockingly, while Lily watched quietly, her small smile hinting she understood exactly why Alba refused to give up on saving them. The enemy laughed mockingly at the mention of Mina, boasting that his group had orchestrated the school festival monster attack and the field trip ambush as well, crediting all of it to that woman's mysterious power controlling beasts from behind the scenes. A horned, tailed woman was shown walking beside the masked man, her expression cold as villagers whispered that she alone was special, capable of generating monsters directly from her own magic, a power they called beast refinement, treated as something to exploit rather than fear. The masked man argued that if the world called them monsters, then that woman was the true monster among them, the genuine princess of monsters. He recalled how Mina had once cried alone, and how Alba had gently comforted her, promising he would always help her. Alba's memory surfaced further, showing Mina promising she would do anything to help him if he ever needed her, insisting she wasn't just being kind out of pity. Alba muttered to himself that Mina was far too gentle a person to have knowingly helped orchestrate any of this cruelty. The villain laughed cruelly, saying it made perfect sense for the saint and her friends to die, since the mysterious woman had woven herself perfectly into their group, according to plan, boasting about how flawlessly she infiltrated their trust without anyone noticing what she truly was. The scene shifted to a grand mansion, where the horned woman stood grieving as two bodies lay crumpled on the floor before her. A chilling voice announced that family was the one thing that truly mattered most, hinting at some dark bargain made in that very room. A young woman with long hair wept over her fallen parents, calling out for her mother and father in horror, her voice cracking as she realized they were already gone. The household shattered in an instant by whatever violence had just taken place around her. The masked intruder introduced himself as Sly, claiming he had come to recruit the horned girl standing nearby as an ally, addressing her plainly as the heretic's daughter while the fallen bodies remained sprawled across the floor behind him. Sly taunted that he had already investigated everything about her, revealing that her own father had confessed and betrayed information about her under pressure, exposing secrets she had desperately tried to protect before everything fell apart around her family. He laughed cruelly, describing how her mother had cried and begged while being tormented, boasting that he intended to kill both of her parents regardless of anything they said or did, treating their suffering as nothing more than an amusing formality before the inevitable end. The horned girl's fury exploded, her true nature surfacing as claws extended and her expression twisted with rage. Sly watched with interest, remarking quietly that this raw, violent reaction was likely her genuine self finally breaking free from the composed mask she always wore. Sly offered a twisted deal, promising to spare her younger sister and keep her safe, provided the girl agreed to join their group, even if it meant killing him herself or refusing to become one of them under any other circumstance he proposed. Photographs on a shelf showed happier times, a family posing together warmly, a younger sister calling out cheerfully for her older sibling. The girl's memories of home cut sharply against the horror unfolding around her, deepening the tragedy of what she had just lost. Tears streaming down her face, the horned girl finally agreed to become their companion, her voice breaking. As she surrendered to Sly's demand, Alba and Lily listened to this account in grim silence, beginning to understand the depth of the tragedy behind her betrayal. Slee grinned wider, confirming that the woman fighting alongside Sharia and her classmates had truly been their ally all along, mocking the idea that any of it had been real friendship. He roared that he would deliver Alba's corpse himself, lunging forward as the fight resumed. Slee lunged forward with his massive claw, roaring as he swung with full force, aiming to crush Alba in a single devastating blow. Lightning crackled violently around the point of impact as the strike connected, sending a shockwave tearing through the rocky terrain surrounding them both. Slee screamed in fury as the explosion of energy consumed his attack, his form thrown backward through the air alongside Alba and Lily amid the chaos. Alba's expression turned cold and merciless, vowing that scum like Slee deserved nothing but death for what he had done. Alba's fury exploded into a devastating strike, tearing through the enemy who had mocked his friends. Lily watched the blast with wide eyes, murmuring about the intensity of the emotion behind it. From a distance, she called out to check if he was all right, her voice cutting through the settling dust. Alba brushed it off with a grin, joking that Lily herself had raised her voice pretty loudly earlier. He declared they were heading out to save Sharia and the others from the heretics. Lily reminded him quietly of her old teacher's lesson, that a true mage should always remain calm no matter what. She recalled the exact words, that emotion could corrupt phenomenon magic itself. It was an important lesson her master had drilled into her, warning that any sorcerer who let their research or their feelings spiral out of control risked destroying themselves entirely from the inside out. Alba shrugged off the warning, declaring loudly that he refused to die no matter what. He explained that avoiding his own doom flag was exactly why he had spent so long running from danger in the first place, hiding away in the mountains instead of facing the world head-on. Lily agreed, telling him she understood and that he should stay calm regardless. Alba muttered to himself that there was no way he would let himself die this early in the story, refusing to accept such an anticlimactic fate after everything he had done just to survive this long. Meanwhile, Sharia sat curled up alone in a stone cell, her arms wrapped around her knees as tears fell silently. She buried her face against her arms, overwhelmed by fear and helplessness, whispering Alba's name quietly as if hoping he might somehow hear her from wherever he was. A pig mask guard unlocked her cell with a heavy key, announcing gruffly that he had come to check on the captured saint. Sharia flinched back against the wall, bracing herself. As the hooded figure lumbered closer, his grotesque mask twisting into something between a grin and a sneer, he warned her that she would be killed that very night, adding with unsettling glee that it seemed such a waste not to at least sample her first. Sharia bolted upright in terror, backing away as far as the chains would allow, her breath catching as the guard reached toward her. The masked man lunged forward, pinning her down as she screamed for him to stop, thrashing desperately against his grip. Her cries echoed through the stone corridor, raw with fear, as she begged for anyone, for Alba especially, to hear her and come running before it was too late. The guard cackled wildly, taunting her to scream louder as he pressed his advantage. Sharia wept and pleaded, her voice breaking as she called out Alba's name one more time in desperation, certain that no one could reach her in time to stop whatever was about to happen. Suddenly, a small mouse scurried up onto the guard's shoulder, shouting for him to let Sharia go and calling him a foul name. Sharia stared through her tears, stunned to see a talking rodent confronting the massive masked brute without a trace of fear in its tiny voice. The mouse transformed in a burst of smoke into a massive gorilla, roaring furiously as it drove a devastating punch straight into the guard, sending him crashing through the stone wall. The gorilla turned to Sharia with a friendly grin, giving her a thumbs up to let her know help had arrived. Alice appeared cheerfully, striking a playful pose as she called out Sharia's name. Sharia broke down crying with relief, rushing forward to embrace her. Alice hugged her gently, comforting her with soft words as Sharia clung to her, finally safe after everything she had just endured in that cell. Sharia explained that she and Yuri's had been chasing the culprits ever since monsters attacked the academy grounds. Alice nodded, relieved to learn the reason behind their rescue, thanking her warmly for tracking down the kidnappers and following the trail all the way to this hidden underground fortress. Alice suggested they head back before Alba and the others grew too worried. Sharia agreed eagerly, still clutching Alice's borrowed sweater around herself for warmth, thanking her quietly and admitting with embarrassment that the oversized garment felt a little too revealing for her taste at the moment. The two girls hurried through the corridor together, but Sharia suddenly paused to ask whether Yuri's was really all right fighting alone. Somewhere in the ruins, Alice reassured her that Yuri's was strong enough to handle himself, recalling how the village elder had once praised his skill in battle. Elsewhere, Yuri's clashed against the stone-skinned heretic, who mocked him for being nothing more than some reincarnated hero chasing justice. The creature roared that it would never forgive so-called villains, launching another brutal assault of jagged rock spikes as Yuri scrambled to dodge through the collapsing cavern. The monster bellowed that evil would surely perish, smashing through the rubble toward Yuri's. Undeterred, Yuri shouted back that he didn't care about grand notions of good or evil, only that he would never forgive anyone who hurt the people precious to him. Charging forward with his blade raised, Yuri drove his sword forward, but the blade shattered uselessly against the creature's impossibly hard rock-like skin. The monster laughed at how ineffective the strike had been, before slamming a massive fist into Yuri's and sending him crashing hard into the broken stone floor beneath them. The creature raged on, declaring that the goddess's church and anyone who sided with the false saint bearing her power were nothing but evil incarnate. As Yuri's lay stunned amid the rubble, the monster loomed over him, vowing that everyone loyal to the saint would be destroyed alongside her. An elder priest spoke solemnly of the goddess's holy power, explaining that the newly chosen saint carried the same divine blessing and the same hope for the world as the girl beside him, a young child no older than the boy seated nearby. The village elder addressed two small children, Yuri's and Alice, urging them to hone their strength together in order to protect the saint. Alice munched on a snack cheerfully while Yuri sat quietly, listening with solemn focus, already carrying the weight of that responsibility. The elder recited an old teaching that the people of the hero's bloodline must always be strong, and declared it their sacred duty to protect the world alongside the goddess's chosen saint, continuing the legacy left behind by the ancient hero's descendants. The elder warned that the city was full of temptations that could disturb the heart, and that harmony over such emotions was essential. Alice complained that being descended from the hero yet living in such a remote countryside felt terribly boring, prompting a scolding glance from young Yuri. The elder promised that if the children grew without losing their judgment, he would recommend them for admission to the prestigious Clearana Academy in the capital. Alice cheered gleefully at the news, hopping around with excitement while Yuri watched her antics with quiet amusement. A memory of the saint's serene face flashed before Yuri's, representing the world's hope. Alice grabbed his hand eagerly, insisting they absolutely had to enroll in the academy together someday. Yuri nodded simply, agreeing to her plan without hesitation, sealing their shared childhood promise. Back in the present, Yuri stood firm against the stone-skinned heretic, declaring he would not let their bond be crushed. His eyes hardened with resolve as the massive figure loomed over him, readying another devastating punch aimed straight at the exhausted young man below. The heretic's fist slammed down with tremendous force, taunting Yuri's to be crushed beneath it. Yuri's held his ground, gritting his teeth as the impact sent shockwaves through the rubble around them, refusing to back down despite the overwhelming power bearing down on him. To the enemy's shock, Yuri's counterattack shattered clean through the stone arm, proving his punch was no ordinary blow. Yuri's explained calmly that he had just pushed his special gear ability up another stage, revealing hidden reserves of strength the creature had completely underestimated. Recalling the elder's old teaching that the people of the hero must be strong, Yuri's pushed his power even further, activating a second stage of enhancement. His stance shifted sharper and more controlled, radiating a new intensity as lightning-like energy crackled around his clenched fist. Yuri surged forward with blinding speed, driving a powerful blow straight into the heretic's face before it could react. The massive figure reeled backward in pain, roaring in shock as Yuri pressed his advantage, refusing to let up even for a moment. The stone giant staggered, groaning in agony as Yuri unleashed another devastating kick that sent rubble scattering everywhere. The creature mockingly asked if he intended to keep fighting despite his exhaustion, but Yuri only tightened his stance, standing resolute amid the settling dust and debris. Elsewhere, a fearsome bear-like creature whimpered pathetically, crying that it hurt and begging for Lord Yoru to save it after Alba effortlessly overwhelmed it. Alba stood unimpressed, watching the beast cower before him, while Lily commented dryly that it seemed like quite the troublesome child. A woman in dark battle attire clashed fiercely with Yuri's, their blows colliding in a shower of sparks. Her cloak whipped around as she moved with fluid, practiced grace, meeting his fist with a sharp counter of her own. Clearly no ordinary opponent among the group. The woman spun and delivered a powerful kick that sent an enemy sprawling across the rubble, remarking casually that he wasn't half bad for putting up a fight. Nearby, another masked figure named Dodora asked if they should retreat to the prison while shouting Lord Yoru's name in alarm. The woman noted that several rats seemed to be scurrying around the ruins, correctly guessing they were heading straight for the captive saint's location. Her sharp instincts picking up on Alice's transformed mouse form moving through the corridors ahead of them. Breathing heavily after his hard-won victory, Yuri confronted her directly, asking if she was the boss behind the academy attack and the saint's kidnapping. She smirked, introducing herself simply as Yoru, greeting him as though meeting an interesting new toy for the very first time. She struck a confident pose, praising his strength with clear amusement in her voice. Then, without warning, she turned and slipped away into the shadows of the ruins, bidding him farewell with a mocking smile, vanishing before Yuri's could react or stop her escape. The rescue succeeded. Shirya and her glasses-wearing companion dashed through the stone doorway, relief written across Shirya's face after pulling Mina out of danger. Only the recovery of their friend remained, but the road ahead proved far more difficult than either girl expected. Shirya's expression shifted the moment her companion mentioned something darker. Mina's parents had been killed. Tears streamed down the girl's face as she begged not to lose anyone else. Shirya stood beside her, admitting quietly that this was something Mina herself had told her, back when they were still trapped together underground. Shirya continued, explaining that Mina had been threatened and forced into her actions against her will. Shirya said she had no choice but to comply either, because the two of them were bound by something deeper than circumstance. That bond had a name. Shirya said it plainly, that they were friends, and nothing about the danger around them changed that fact. The cavern shook violently as a massive stone monster tore through the rock behind them. Its jagged face loomed over Shirya and her companion, declaring it would not let them escape. One of the girls shouted back, accusing the creature of being the one who had taken her. The monster's fists slammed down, but Shirya shielded her injured friend from the blow, crying out in pain as debris scattered around them. Through gritted teeth, Shirya demanded to know why the creature wasn't fighting Yuri instead, since that should have been its true opponent. Elsewhere in the ruins, Alice explained the situation to another ally. The frightened, hulking figure kneeling before them was the leader of this group of monsters, and its name was Yol. Yol itself boasted that no one could stand against him, calling himself the strongest. Back in the thick of battle, Shirya called out to check on Yuri's, worried he might be hurt. Someone reassured her that Yuri's was fine precisely because he was the strongest fighter among them. Yuri's clashed directly with a woman wielding a technique called Overs 2. Blood and dust exploded from the impact of their fists meeting. The woman taunted him, calling his skill nothing short of genius, but Yuri's rejected the label, insisting that everything he had was built from effort, not talent. He noted grimly that his opponent was also a user of that same overpowering technique. Yuri's pressed his attack, shouting that he refused to lose to evil. He drove his heel down hard, taunting his opponent with the burning heat of the exchange, but she twisted away at the last second and countered. The woman smiled coldly, mocking him for dreaming that good could triumph over evil. So simply, blood sprayed from Yuri's as her strike connected, sending him crashing backward across the shattered ground. She rose above him, her figure wreathed in dark power, reciting her own twisted philosophy. The wise weep while fools laugh in a world like this. She declared her plan to kill the saint and remake the world into something equal for everyone. Her smile widened as she confessed her true purpose. Everything she did was in service of killing a god, and she intended to show mercy to no one who stood in her way. Yuri's pushed himself back up despite his wounds, blood dripping from his mouth, and answered simply that being called foolish suited him fine. His belief, he said, was to walk the path he trusted in without ever wavering, and that conviction was what defined him. The woman pointed at him, declaring this a bad end for the story. Yet she paused, almost amused, admitting that a line like his sounded like something straight out of a stage play, fitting for someone who carried himself like the hero of his own drama. Yuri surged forward with everything he had left, slamming a decisive blow into her before she could react. She crashed through the rubble, and even as she fell, she admitted her instincts about him had never been wrong. Yuri's power erupted around him as he unleashed a new stage of his technique. Overs 3. Nearby, Yol sneered at the sight, mocking him for a child using magic he shouldn't even have access to, still grudgingly calling him a genius. Elsewhere, Alice stood firm against Yol, declaring that Yuri's and the others were nothing like the villains Yol accused them of being, and that they would never lose to someone like him. Yol shot back defensively, insisting that he and his people weren't villains either. The creature beside Yol tried to explain that the real culprit had acted alone, someone named Sliv, and that he himself bore no blame. But Shirya's fury broke through, and she screamed that anyone connected to the deaths of Mina's parents was undeniably a villain. No excuses accepted. The monsters roared back, insisting they stood for justice, and the battlefield shook as they clashed once more. Amid the chaos, an old creed echoed through the ruins, describing how countless grains gathering upon the earth were the blessing that shaped the world, and that all living things shared in that same inheritance of life. Shirya and her friend were sent flying through the rubble as the fight raged on beneath them. Shirya tumbled through the aftermath of the collapse, confused as boulders crumbled uselessly around her. Beside her, her companion crashed to the ground, equally bewildered. Behind them, Yol roared in fury, demanding to know why the earth magic he had cast had simply unraveled. A voice explained the truth. Yol's technique had blended real stone with imitation, an advanced form of earth magic layered together, but Sharia had overwritten the entire spell with her own incantation, rewriting it before it could take hold. Yol could only scream in confusion, demanding to know who was responsible. Sharia stood amid falling petals, declaring that this space now belonged entirely to her magical territory, and that his earth magic would never activate here again. Lily recognized her at once as the girl who had run beside her during the sports festival, part of the Phoenix team. Sharia confirmed it, introducing herself simply as Lily, the saint who had come to help. A boy with wild, spiked hair appeared, grinning as he stepped forward, saying he'd come alongside Al. Alice's eyes lit up in surprise and delight at the mention of his name. Alba, clearly captivated. Lily teased that with Al around they now had 100 times the manpower, earning a flustered response. The group's relief was short-lived. Someone asked where Al had gone, only to be told he had already gone off ahead as a decoy, leaving the others stunned and worried. Elsewhere, lightning tore through the battlefield as Alba unleashed his strength against multiple monstrous enemies at once, praised for how powerful he was. He shouted for Lily to trust him with this fight while he held the line. Yol loomed over Sharia, Lily, and Alice, declaring that no one would escape him. Sharia stood her ground, calmly warning him that his earth magic was useless against her now, and that resistance was pointless. Yol clenched his fists, insisting stubbornly that the power he wielded had been granted to him by Yol-sama himself, and that losing simply wasn't an option because it represented justice to him. In the mountains, another version of Yol addressed a mysterious woman approaching him, asking if she wasn't afraid of him the way everyone else was, since they all called his kind monsters. She replied with amusement, saying only that no one else seemed to know her name either, introducing herself as Dodora. Dodora smiled, telling the creature that he possessed a vessel capable of holding special power. She invited him to come with her, to use that strength for the sake of justice, framing it as something worth living for. Back in the present, Yol screamed that his power granted for justice would never lose. Lily and Alice watched in awe as another version of Yol demonstrated a chant less high-level spell nearby, though Sharia remained unmoved, noting that talking about power without understanding its principles was foolish. Sharia launched into her own lecture, explaining that magic was the crystallized wisdom of predecessors who had refined it endlessly. She recited an incantation invoking the earthen garments that clung to the body, commanding the binding to unravel completely, startling the monstrous face before her. An explosion tore through the chamber as Sharia calmly walked forward amid the blast. Invoking her teacher's words that a mage must always remain composed, Lily gasped, stunned, asking if that had truly been a self-destructing spell. Lily thanked Sharia excitedly for manipulating the enemy's magic so effortlessly, calling it incredible. Sharia brushed off the formal thanks, insisting there was no need for such politeness between them. Lily remained shaken by the outcome, but Sharia explained simply that the creature had used earth magic purely to protect itself, and she had merely stripped that protection away beneath the shattered rock. A small child's form was revealed, crying out in fear. Sharia confirmed quietly that inside had been nothing more than a child. Sharia announced that both of them, Lily and Alice, would come along together. Lily, confused, asked where they were headed. Sharia muttered under her breath about how disturbing it was that children like this had been forced into fighting at all. Sharia revealed that she had obtained the key needed to resolve this entire incident. Alice and Lily both reacted with shock, repeating the word key back to her in disbelief, realizing this meant the case was finally within reach of being solved. In a ruined shrine dominated by a towering demonic statue, Alba stood alone, wondering aloud whether the pursuers chasing him had mostly been dealt with. He murmured to himself, hoping Lily and the others were managing well without him. Alba studied the imposing figure before him, recognizing it as clear fantasy, the strongest boss in the game, calling it the Demon King. A voice above declared that a Demon King wouldn't necessarily appear in every scenario since Clear Fantasy operated across multiple story paths. Sitting before the throne, Alba addressed the statue directly as Demon King, quietly praying that in this particular life, no such Demon King would ever show up before him. A sound echoed through the chamber as a door creaked open, revealing a figure stepping inside. Alba's eyes widened in surprise. The newcomer spoke first, remarking with quiet relief that Alba had actually come. Addressing him by name, Alba replied that he was glad, admitting he had hoped that if he caused enough of a commotion, someone would come looking for him. A transformed figure emerged from the shadows of the corridor, horns curling from her head and a long tail trailing behind her dark robes. Alba's eyes widened as he breathed out her name. Mina. She smiled at his reaction, calling herself a monster and admitting she found it amusing that he seemed so surprised by her true form. Alba could only stare, shaken by the sight in front of him. Alba admitted quietly that his shock hadn't come from her appearance at all, but from remembering something tied to Mina. On the screen of a game controller, an image flickered showing a monstrous boss battle. A queen surrounded by 3 summoned creatures, an enemy that had once given players immense trouble by generating monsters of her own. Alba's expression hardened as he declared that he had something important to protect, and that meant he couldn't back down. Mina's voice cut in beside him, saying quietly that she had no choice but to make a decision all over again. 2 beastly creatures roared to life around her, one dark and lion-like, the other pale and horned, as Mina cried out in anguish that she was about to kill someone precious to him. Alba could only whisper her name in disbelief. Tears streaked down Mina's face as she repeated her apology over and over, sorrow overwhelming her even as the battle began. To be continued. Deep within a crumbling underground ruin, a massive lion beast and a horned chimera stood before Alba and Mina. The creature that once fought beside them had turned monstrous, twisted into something neither of them recognized anymore. Mina's eyes welled with tears as she watched her friend become a threat neither magic nor reason could reach. Alba stayed silent, his expression unreadable, weighing a decision that would determine whether they lived or died in that moment. The chimera unleashed a devastating blast of energy, forcing Mina to flinch back in shock. The explosion tore through the stone corridor, sending debris scattering in every direction. Watching the smoke and light consume the space where the beast once stood, Mina could only utter a broken question, unable to comprehend what had just happened before her eyes. Alba, unshaken by the chaos, turned to Mina with a confident smirk. He told her she had gotten several things wrong about him. The first misunderstanding, he explained, was her belief that he had no means of physical combat. His memory drifted back to an earlier lesson from Yuri's during an off-campus training session. Yuri's had pointed out that Alba possessed a powerful physical advantage that had nothing to do with spellcasting. According to Yuri's, Alba's magic gave him something far more useful in a fight: incredible speed. Yuri's continued, explaining that Alba's magic constantly generated an enormous amount of kinetic energy from his own movement. All he had to do was release that stored force directly into an object, turning ordinary momentum into overwhelming impact. With that memory guiding him, Alba wound up and hurled a plain stone with everything he had. The projectile tore through the air with a force that defied its size, driven purely by the raw energy his magic had built up inside his own motion. The stone struck like a cannon shot, moving at a speed the chimera never anticipated. Alba laughed it off afterward, admitting the trick was almost embarrassingly simple, calling it a blind spot that nobody, including himself, had thought to exploit until now. Turning back to Mina, Alba reassured her that his strength was real and that she had misjudged him a second time. He reached out and held her by the shoulders, promising with total certainty that he would help her, no matter what stood in the way. Mina's face crumpled as she confessed the truth eating away at her. She admitted she wanted to destroy the organization that had trapped her in its grip. Alba's expression hardened as he mentioned Sharia's name, recognizing that she too had become entangled in whatever scheme had been forced upon Mina. He asked her simply to trust him. Alba pulled Mina into his arms as she broke down completely, her composure finally giving way between gasps. She admitted that deep inside she had been screaming the same words over and over, though she had never let them reach the surface until now. What she had wanted to say, she finally revealed, was that she wished someone would help her. She had held it in for so long, terrified that admitting she had become a hostage would somehow betray the very family who loved a creature like her. Someone she still saw as a monster underneath everything. Her memory shifted back to childhood, to a forest where a hiking couple stumbled upon a crying child with no memory of her real parents. The husband and wife noticed her immediately, startled by what they found among the trees. Mina, curled up and sobbing, remembered herself as a heretic, an outcast with a tail and ears that marked her as different from everyone else. Despite that, the childless couple, the Lupikas, chose to take her in and raise her as their own daughter. They loved her without hesitation, and Mina grew up sheltered from want, taught to master a rare transformation magic that let her appear human. Her adoptive parents doted on her, reading with her, encouraging her gift, giving her a life she never expected to have. Then one day, everything changed. Her new mother in a hospital bed introduced her to a baby sister, telling her the child would be family from that moment on. She asked Mina to watch over her always. The baby's name, she said gently, was Kana. Cradling the newborn, Mina's mother beamed with pride as the family gathered close, and Mina made herself a silent vow: No matter what happened, she would always protect her little sister Kana without exception. That vow became the very thing the organization used against her. To keep Kana safe, Mina admitted she had cooperated with the group, allowing them to capture Shiria in the process. Her voice cracked as she confessed her own role, blaming herself entirely for what had happened to her friend. Alba pulled her close again, ruffling her hair and telling her she had made a third mistake. He was not the only one who could act, he said, and with a grin he added that helping her was something he genuinely wanted to do, not an obligation. Mina, startled, could only let out a small surprised sound as he embraced her sincerity along with her guilt. Later, Mina walked through the ruins to rejoin two familiar faces waiting for her, one waving cheerfully and calling out to both her and Alba their voices. Warm and welcoming despite everything, greeted her as though nothing had ever gone wrong between them. Confused, Mina asked why they were treating her like this after everything she had done. Standing among the wreckage, she was told plainly that Alice and Lily were the ones who had saved her, extending trust exactly when she needed it most. Closing the chapter on her guilt with quiet forgiveness instead of blame, Sherry explained that she was not the only one who understood the truth. She had found something buried in a place that had been sealed away long ago, a discovery that changed everything about what was really happening inside that hidden fortress. The group stood before a massive sealed door covered in ancient markings. Lily asked in disbelief whether this was truly a sealing spell. Sharia confirmed it, explaining that she could sense a familiar power radiating from within, the same force that had once split Alba and herself apart. She warned that breaking the seal would reveal exactly what had been hidden all along. With a burst of light, Lily shattered the seal, completely stunning everyone around her. Alice praised her, calling it something normally impossible to undo. Lily brushed it off modestly, admitting she had simply trained hard under her mentor and picked up a few tricks along the way. A strange sound echoed from deeper inside the chamber. The group turned toward a heavy door as it creaked open on its own, revealing someone none of them expected to see standing there. Behind the door stood a small girl surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books, clearly startled by the sudden intrusion. She introduced herself as Kana Lupika and asked who they all were, adding that she recognized a name among them: Mina, her older sister. The girls stared at her in shock. Kana explained that her papa, mama, and older sister were all sick, and that Dodora had brought her here to keep her safe, so she would not fall ill as well. She insisted she was being a good girl despite being lonely, and the group struggled to process what they were hearing. One of them asked quietly what had actually happened to Mina's parents. The answer came bluntly: they had been killed. Meanwhile, Kana, unaware of the truth, cheerfully hoped that everyone would get better soon, her innocent smile a painful contrast to the reality surrounding her. Kana asked eagerly whether she could finally go see her sister, promising she had been well-behaved the whole time when Lily confirmed they could bring her along. Kana burst into delighted cheers, thanking them over and over as the reunion suddenly became real. The group carried the news back to where Mina was waiting with Alba. Everyone reassured her that things were finally all right. Moments later, Kana came running toward her sister, shouting her name with pure joy, unable to contain her excitement at seeing her again. Mina dropped to her knees and pulled Kana into a tight embrace, both of them crying as they held each other. Kana asked between sobs whether Mina had gotten better, whether her sickness was finally gone, and Mina could only nod through her tears, overwhelmed by relief. Alba stood nearby with Lily, watching the sisters reunite. He turned to her with a teasing smile, apologizing sarcastically for being nothing more than a glorified bodyguard throughout the entire ordeal. Lily simply smiled at him, grateful that Shiria had come out of everything unharmed. Shiria admitted quietly that she had believed in Alba the whole time, certain he would come through and save everyone as promised. Lily thanked him warmly, and Shiria echoed the sentiment, her earlier fear replaced by genuine gratitude toward him. Shiria addressed the group, acknowledging everyone who had helped. In the ruined hall, the chimera that had once attacked them now lay defeated and still. A quiet voice, weak but sincere, thanked them all before offering a heartfelt apology for everything that had happened. The creature, still bearing traces of its former self, vowed to atone for its sins no matter what it took. Mina and the others exchanged uncertain glances as Kana looked on, confused, calling out to her sister and asking what was going on. Mina knelt beside the transformed friend and gently placed her hand over its claw, offering quiet comfort despite everything that had unfolded. Alice explained gently that Mina had only ever wanted to protect Kana, nothing more. Kana, still not fully understanding, listened as Alice reassured everyone nearby that wanting to protect someone precious was never something anyone should call a sin. Mina looked up through her tears as the words settled over her. Alice continued, insisting that even the concept of judging love itself was something beyond anyone, even the gods. Turning to the group, she reminded everyone that despite the chaos and pain, they all remained friends, unwilling to condemn a bond built on love and sacrifice. Sharia smiled through her own tears, and Lily cheerfully suggested they all play together again sometime soon. Alba's expression grew serious as he reflected on what should have happened, according to the game's original script. In that story, Mina was meant to become the boss character known as the Demon Beast Queen. The Saint's kidnapping incident was supposed to end with her defeat at the hands of the hero, but Alba made it clear that this reality was different, refusing to let fate play out the way the game intended. Standing together with Kana at the center, the group declared that destiny could still be changed. Sharia reached for Kana's hand while Lily beamed beside them, and even the quieter members of the group carried a sense of resolve, united in defying the tragic ending that once seemed unavoidable. Alba pointed out with surprise that if Alice was truly here, then Yuri's must be involved as well, since the original story had the hero coming to rescue the Saint. Alice confirmed it, explaining that Yuri's was currently the boss holding that very fortress, meaning he was likely still fighting somewhere close by. Determined, Lily announced that their next mission was clear. Everyone needed to go help Yuri's together. Sharia offered her own strength for the effort, and the smaller Kana cheered alongside them, thanking Sharia warmly as the group turned their attention toward the next challenge waiting ahead. In the original game, Alba himself had stood on the boss's side during this very battle. Now that his role had shifted entirely, a question loomed over everyone present. Without him filling that position, who or what would take his place instead? A sudden explosion tore through the ruined hall, sending a large man crashing violently into the ceiling and back down amid flying debris. Alba and Mina stared in horror as the shockwave ripped through the stone corridor, the group barely able to process what had just happened. Alice's voice cracked in disbelief as she called out for Yuri's, refusing to accept what she was seeing. Elsewhere, deep in the wreckage, Yuri sat slumped against broken rock, blood trailing from his mouth, badly wounded and barely conscious as the others rushed toward him in a panic. A figure remarked coldly that a magic technique like overwhelming third-stage amplification would destroy anyone whose body could not handle it, calling it a self-inflicted collapse. She noted with mock sympathy that the boy had clearly pushed his growth too fast too soon, watching as the group scrambled toward Yuri amid the rubble. From the settling dust emerged a tall woman in dark, revealing armor, her expression dripping with amusement as she addressed the stunned group. She remarked casually that everyone seemed to have gathered here together, her tone carrying an unsettling calm despite the destruction surrounding her. She asked mockingly whether her own organization had been completely wiped out, sighing at what she called their sloppiness. Behind her, the ruined columns and scattered rubble stretched across the chamber as the group tensed, unsure of what threat had just revealed itself. Recognition hit Alba first. As he stared at her in disbelief, he identified her simply as Yor. Mina and Kana reacted with visible unease, repeating the name back with dawning realization of exactly who they were now facing. In the world of the game, Yor had been a recruitable ally character, one who greeted new students from Kleena Academy warmly and appeared genuinely helpful. She addressed the group playfully, calling them fellow classmates and cute underclassmen, offering to lend a hand as though nothing about the situation had changed from her original role. Alba stared at her, wondering aloud whether the scenario had shifted dramatically because of his absence from the story. Another figure, calm and composed, suggested that perhaps it was simply because the villain Alba, the one meant to cause trouble in this world, no longer existed to fulfill that function. Yor asked with a sly grin whether the young lady standing before her intended to betray Ragnarok. The girl repeated the word back, considering it carefully, clearly weighing what loyalty even meant anymore in a situation this twisted. Yor's clothing tore away under building pressure as she invoked the same overwhelming technique that had nearly destroyed Yuri's moments earlier. She declared with a confident smile that she alone would take on every single one of them without needing any help at all. The oppressive force radiating from her was enough to make even composed fighters flinch and cry out in pain. Kana clung to Mina in fear as the pressure crushed the air around them. One of the group noted grimly that such overwhelming presence made sense, since Yor had originally been one of the strongest support characters in the entire game. Yor's expression darkened as she promised to punish them properly, adding with cruel amusement that she intended to make an example out of the boy who had caused her so much trouble. Alice's voice broke into a desperate cry as she called out for Alba, tears streaming down her face while she struggled to explain what had happened. Turning back toward the source of her distress, she saw Yuri's lying motionless on the ground, and her scream tore through the ruins. As the others rushed toward him, Alice cradled Yuri's limp body against her, sobbing uncontrollably as she cried out that he had died. The rest of the group stood frozen in shock, disbelief written across every face as the reality of the moment sank in. Someone whispered in horror that the story's very protagonist had just been killed, the devastating revelation marking the end of the chapter.